Before we dive into tonight's story, I want to give a huge shout out to Optic Goku for the story idea. Your comments and engagement mean everything, and they keep these stories coming. To everyone listening, drop your story ideas in the comments below. What conspiracy theories do you want explored? What mysteries keep you up at night? Your suggestions shape this channel, and we try and read every single one. Now, let's get into tonight's investigation. The envelope arrives on a Tuesday, March 14th, 2006, Sacramento, California. Department of Education Records Office, 3rd floor. A woman named Patricia Hernandez is sorting through the Daily Mail, requisition forms, budget reports, interdepartmental memos when she finds it. Manila envelope. No return address, no postage stamp, no courier log entry. Someone walked into the building, bypassed security, and slipped it under the glass door of the records vault. Patricia should report it. Protocol dictates that all unmarked deliveries be flagged for inspection. But she's been working in government administration for 23 years, and she's learned that sometimes the most important documents are the ones that arrive without fanfare. She opens it. Inside, 17 photocopied pages. The quality is poor. Copies of copies, text swimming in and out of focus, whole paragraphs drowned beneath thick black redaction bars. But one page survives almost intact. It's a list. Names arranged in 2 columns beneath a header that reads Longitudinal Cognitive Development Cohort, Phase Termination Review, Department of Education, Classification Level, Confidential. Below that, another line, GATE, Cohort 7, 1998 intake. 32 names. Most are redacted, black bars covering first names, last names, sometimes both. But one name, halfway down the second column, remains completely visible. Someone forgot to black it out. Or maybe they wanted it found. Evan Michael Halbrook. DOB, June 12th, 1990. Status, active monitoring. Patricia reads the document 3 times. Then she makes a decision that will change everything. She doesn't report it. She doesn't file it. She scans it, saves it to a thumb drive, and walks out of the building during her lunch break. By 5 p.m, the document is uploaded to 3 different servers. By midnight, it's circulating on encrypted forums where people discuss things the government doesn't want discussed. By morning, Evan Halbrook's life will never be the same. The classroom smells like tempera paint and pencil shavings, and the particular staleness that accumulates in rooms full of 8-year-olds on a Thursday afternoon in late April. Evan Halbrook sits at his desk in the 3rd row, 4 seats from the window, working on a math worksheet that's far too easy. He finishes the multiplication problems in 7 minutes and spends the remaining 23 drawing geometric patterns in the margins, interlocking triangles, spirals, fractals that emerge without conscious thought. He's been doing this for as long as he can remember. Drawing patterns, seeing connections, understanding systems before anyone explains them. His teachers call him gifted, which is a word that makes him uncomfortable because it implies he's been given something, when really it just feels like he notices things other people don't. At 2:15 p.m, the classroom door opens. Mrs. Patterson, his teacher, looks up from her desk. The woman in the doorway is tall, maybe 5'10", wearing a grey blazer over a white blouse, dark slacks, sensible shoes. She's carrying a leather portfolio and wearing a lanyard with a plastic ID badge that catches the fluorescent light. Her hair is pulled back in a severe bun. She doesn't smile. "Excuse me, Mrs. Patterson," the woman says. Her voice is flat, professional, empty of warmth. "I'm here for Evan Halbrook." Every child in the room turns to look at Evan. 23 pairs of eyes. He feels his face flush. Mrs. Patterson stands. "Of course. Evan, please bring your pencil and follow Mrs. Dr. Leland," the woman says. "Just the pencil. He won't need anything else." Evan stands. His legs feel strange, like they belong to someone else. He picks up his pencil, a yellow number 2 with the eraser chewed down to the metal, and walks to the front of the room. Behind him, he hears whispers. He doesn't look back. The hallway's empty. Their footsteps echo on the linoleum. His soft, hers sharp and rhythmic. They walk past the nurse's office, past the library with its smell of old books and carpet cleaner, past the cafeteria where lunch ladies are already preparing tomorrow's meals. They reach a part of the school Evan has never been to before, a side exit near the maintenance closet, Doctor. Leland pushes open the door and suddenly they're outside, behind the main building, walking across a strip of dead grass toward a portable classroom Evan never knew existed. It's old. Older than the other portables. The paint is sun-faded, the windows tinted dark, the door secured with a keypad lock. Dr. Leland punches in a code, 5 digits, too fast for Evan to see, and the lock clicks open. Inside, the room is cold. Much colder than it should be. The air conditioning is running at full blast even though it's barely 70 degrees outside. The fluorescent lights hum louder here, a frequency that makes Evan's teeth ache. There are 6 desks arranged in 2 rows of 3, each with a wooden partition between them like voting booths. 3 other children are already seated. Evan recognises one, a girl named Lena Crow from the 4th grade class. She has red hair in 2 braids and freckles across her nose. She's staring straight ahead, not acknowledging anyone. "Sit anywhere, Doctor," Leland says. Evan chooses the desk in the back left corner. On the desk, a booklet with a blank cover, a sharpened pencil, and a small plastic cup of water. The booklet has a number written in the corner, 7-03. Dr. Leland walks to the front of the room and stands behind a teacher's desk that's completely empty. No papers, no supplies, no personal items, just a clipboard and a red pen. "You have 90 minutes, she says. "Begin when I say so. Do not speak. Do not look at other students' work. If you need to use the restroom, raise your hand and wait. If you have a question, raise your hand and wait. Do not open the booklet until I tell you to begin." She pauses, looks at each child individually. When her eyes meet Evan's, he feels something cold slide down his spine. "Begin." Evan opens the booklet. The first section is normal, comforting even. Math problems, reading comprehension passages, vocabulary. He knows how to do this. He's been doing this kind of test since kindergarten. He works quickly, efficiently, finishing the first 10 pages in 18 minutes. Then the booklet changes. Page 11. A new section header, Spatial Reasoning. Below it, a series of geometric shapes, circles, triangles, squares, hexagons, arranged in sequences. Beneath each sequence, a blank space with the instruction, complete the pattern. Evan looks at the first one. Circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle, square, circle, triangle. The answer is obviously square. He fills it in. The second one is harder. Triangle, circle, triangle, circle, triangle, square, triangle, circle, triangle, circle, triangle. He stares at it for 30 seconds before he sees it. The square appears every 6th position. The answer is square. He fills it in. The third one, square, circle, triangle, triangle, circle, square, square, circle, triangle, triangle, circle. This one takes him a minute. He draws it out on scratch paper, looking for the repetition. Finally he sees it. The pattern reverses at the midpoint. The answer is square. He fills it in. The fourth one, triangle, circle, square, circle, triangle, square, triangle, square, circle, triangle, circle, square, square, triangle. Evan stares at it. He tries different approaches. He looks for mathematical progressions, geometric relationships, colour coding. Nothing works. There is no pattern. It's random. It has to be random. But the instruction says, complete the pattern. He sits there for 3 minutes, pencil hovering over the blank space, and then, without knowing why, without thinking, he draws a triangle inside a circle. He doesn't know why it's correct, but he knows, absolutely, completely, certainly, that it is. He moves to the next section, page 16. A new section header, Perceptual Analysis. Below it, an instruction. Study the image below for exactly 30 seconds. Then turn the page and answer the questions. Do not look back at the image once you have turned the page. The image is a black and white photograph. It looks old, grainy, slightly out of focus, like it was taken in the 1960s or 70s. It shows a room, empty except for a single wooden chair in the centre. The walls are bare concrete. There's a window on the left side, but the glass is dark. You can't see what's outside. In the bottom right corner there's a shadow, just barely visible, that might be a person standing outside the frame. Evan studies it. He counts in his head. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. At 30 seconds he turns the page. Question 1. How many people were in the room when the photograph was taken? Evan blinks. He looks back at the instruction. Do not look back at the image. He can't check. He has to answer from memory. He thinks. There was the chair, the walls, the window, the shadow. Was the shadow a person? He wasn't sure. But the question asks how many people were in the room, not in the photograph. So even if the shadow was a person, they were outside the room. He writes 0. Question 2. What direction was the photographer facing? This should be impossible to answer. But Evan closes his eyes and visualises the photograph. The window was on the left. If the window was on the left and assuming the sun was... No, that's not how he knows. He just knows. He writes, north. Question 3. What was outside the window? He writes, a parking lot. He has no idea if these answers are correct, but he's absolutely certain they are. The test continues, each section stranger than the last. Probability assessment. A series of scenarios, a coin flip, a dice roll, a card drawn from a deck, where Evan is asked not to calculate the mathematical probability, but to predict the outcome. Temporal sequencing. A list of events scrambled out of order. Evan is asked to arrange them chronologically even though he's never heard of any of them. Example, the library burns, the mayor resigns, the investigation concludes, the reporter publishes the story. He arranges them in an order that feels right. Investigation, reporter, library, mayor. He doesn't know why. Emotional recognition. Photographs of faces with neutral expressions. Evan is asked to identify what emotion the person was feeling when the photo was taken. Not what emotion they're displaying, what they were feeling. He writes his answers. Afraid, angry, sad, hopeful. At page 38, the test ends. Dr. Leland collects the booklets without comment. As she passes Evan's desk, she pauses. Her eyes scan his answers. Then she picks up her red pen and draws a small mark in the upper right corner of his booklet. A triangle inside a circle. Evan doesn't see it. You're dismissed, Doctor, Leland says. Return to your classroom. Evan walks back across the dead grass, through the side door, down the hallway. When he reaches his classroom, it's 2 minutes before the final bell. Mrs. Patterson smiles at him, a warm, genuine smile, and says, How did it go? Fine, Evan says. But it wasn't fine. Something about the test felt wrong. Not difficult. Wrong. Like he'd been measured for something that shouldn't be measurable. That night, he dreams about the photograph, the empty room, the chair, the shadow. In the dream, the shadow moves. 3 weeks pass. Evan doesn't think about the test. Or rather, he tries not to think about the test. But it lingers at the edges of his consciousness like a song he can't get out of his head. Then, on a Monday in mid-May, Mrs. Patterson calls him to her desk before class starts. Evan, she says, her voice bright with manufactured enthusiasm, I have wonderful news. She hands him a large envelope. It's made of heavy cream-coloured paper with a gold seal in the corner. The return address reads, Orange County Department of Education, Advanced Learning Division. Open it, Mrs. Patterson says. Evan tears open the envelope. Inside, a letter printed on matching cream-coloured paper with a letterhead that features the California state seal. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Halbrook, it is our pleasure to inform you that your son, Evan Michael Halbrook, has been selected for enrolment in the Orange County Gifted and Talented Education Program, GATE. Based on his exceptional performance in cognitive assessment testing, Evan has demonstrated the aptitude and potential necessary for advanced academic enrichment. The GATE program is designed to challenge high-potential students and prepare them for academic excellence through specialised curriculum, advanced learning opportunities, and individualised instruction. Evan will begin attending GATE classes starting in the fall of the 1998-99 academic year. Programme participation will continue through 6th grade, with annual performance reviews to ensure continued appropriateness of placement. Please complete the attached enrolment forms and return them to the school office by June 1st, 1998. Congratulations to Evan on this outstanding achievement. Sincerely, Dr. Marjorie Leland, Director, Advanced Learning Division. Evan reads it twice. Mrs. Patterson is beaming at him. This is such an honour, Evan. Your parents must be so proud. That afternoon, when Evan gets home, his parents are proud. His mother frames the letter. His father calls his grandparents. They take him out to dinner to celebrate. Everyone tells him how special he is, how bright his future will be, how lucky he is to have this opportunity. Evan smiles and says, "Thank you." But that night, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, he feels something he can't name. Not fear exactly, not dread. Unease. Like he's been selected for something that has nothing to do with education. The GATE classroom is located in the same portable unit where Evan took the test. He reports there on the first day of 4th grade carrying a new backpack and a lunchbox, and the vague sense that something fundamental has shifted in his life. The door is already unlocked. Inside, 11 other students are seated at desks arranged in a rough semicircle. No rows, no traditional classroom structure, just a circle like they're sitting around a campfire. Evan recognises some of them. Lena Crow, the red-haired girl from the test. A boy named Marcus Tate who barely ever speaks and always wears the same black hoodie. A girl named Sophie Ruiz who draws compulsively in the margins of every notebook. At the front of the room stands a man in his early 30s. He's wearing khakis and a blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up, wire-rimmed glasses, beard trimmed neatly. He looks like every other elementary school teacher except for his eyes, which are sharp and assessing in a way that makes Evan uncomfortable. "Good morning," the man says. "My name is Mr. Calloway. Welcome to GATE." He doesn't smile. He doesn't make small talk. He doesn't do any of the normal first day of school things like asking students to share fun facts about themselves or playing icebreaker games. Instead, he says, "You're here because you're different. Not better. Not smarter. Different. You see patterns other people don't see. You understand systems other people don't understand. You know things before you're told. And we're going to figure out what that difference means and how to use it." He pauses, looks at each student individually. Some of you will find this exciting. Some of you will find uncomfortable. Both responses are valid. What's important is that you're honest, with me, with each other, and with yourselves. This program only works if you participate fully. A girl in the front row raises her hand. "What are we going to learn?" Mr. Calloway smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. "Everything that matters," he says. The GATE curriculum is unlike anything Evan has experienced. There are no textbooks, no worksheets, no spelling tests or multiplication tables. Instead, Mr. Calloway presents them with scenarios. You wake up in a room with no windows or doors. How do you get out? The students discuss. Some say, "Break through the wall." Some say, "Look for a hidden door." Some say, "It's impossible." Evan says, "Stop imagining the room." Mr. Calloway writes that answer on the board. A stranger approaches you on the street and tells you not to go home. What do you do? Responses vary. Ignore them. Call the police. Ask why. Evan says, "Go home, but carefully." Another scenario. You wake up and the calendar says it's 3 years in the future. How do you verify that it's real? Check the news. Look at your ID. Ask someone. Evan says, Try to remember something you can't have known 3 years ago. Mr. Calloway never tells them which answers are correct. He just writes them on the board and asks, which response is most adaptive? The students debate. They argue. They defend their reasoning. And all the while, Mr. Calloway watches, taking notes, recording everything. In late October, Mr. Calloway introduces a new activity. Today, we're going to practice silent communication, he says. He pairs the students off. Evan is paired with Lena Crow. They're told to move their desks so they're facing each other, knees almost touching, close enough that Evan can count the freckles on Lena's face. Eye contact, mister, Calloway says. Don't look away. Don't speak. Just look at each other and try to understand what the other person is thinking. For how long? Someone asks. 10 minutes. A ripple of discomfort moves through the room. 10 minutes is an eternity when you're staring into another person's eyes. Mr. Calloway sets a timer. Begin. Evan looks at Lena. She looks back. Her eyes are pale green, almost grey, and they don't blink. At first it's merely awkward, then uncomfortable, then something else. Evan feels dizzy. The room seems to tilt. Lena's pupils dilate, expanding until they're huge black pools that seem to pull him in. He wants to look away. He can't. His vision begins to tunnel. All he can see are her eyes. All he can feel is a pressure building behind his own eyes, like something pushing outward from inside his skull. He thinks he hears something. A voice, distant and muffled, like someone speaking underwater. He can't make out the words. The timer rings. Evan gasps and looks away. His hands are shaking. His shirt is damp with sweat. Write down what you felt, Mr. Calloway says, handing out index cards. Evan writes, scared, dizzy. Heard a voice but couldn't understand it. He doesn't know what Lena writes. Mr. Calloway collects the cards without reading them aloud. That night, Evan has nightmares. He dreams he's back in the portable classroom, but the windows are covered with black plastic and the door won't open. He can hear voices outside, muffled, indistinct. But when he calls for help, no one answers. He wakes at 3 a.m. drenched in sweat, heart hammering against his ribs. In mid-November, Mr. Calloway hands out blank sheets of paper and coloured pencils. I want you to draw a place you've never been, he says. Close your eyes first. Don't think about it. Just let the image come to you. Draw what you see. Evan closes his eyes. For a long time, maybe 2 minutes, maybe 5, he sees nothing. Just darkness and the faint phosphine patterns that swim across your vision when your eyes are closed. Then, slowly, an image begins to form. A desert, flat and endless and the colour of bone. The sky's pale blue, washed out, empty of clouds. In the centre of the desert, a cluster of buildings, low, blocky structures made of concrete with no windows. They look military, utilitarian. Behind them, 3 massive structures rise into the sky. Radar domes. White and perfectly smooth and enormous, each one at least 50 feet tall. The image is so vivid it's like looking at a photograph. Evan can see every detail. The shadows cast by the buildings, the heat shimmer rising from the sand, even the texture of the concrete. He opens his eyes and draws. He works for 15 minutes using browns and yellows and greys. When he's finished, the drawing looks exactly like the image in his mind. The buildings, the domes, the empty sky. Mister. Calloway walks through the classroom, glancing at each student's drawing. When he reaches Evan's desk, he stops, stares. His expression doesn't change, but Evan sees his hand tighten around his clipboard. Evan, Mr. Calloway says quietly, where did you see this? I didn't, Evan says. I imagined it. Have you ever been to the desert? Once. We went to Palm Springs, but it didn't look like this. Mr. Calloway nods slowly. He picks up Evan's drawing, folds it carefully in half and places it in his clipboard. Thank you, he says. Evan never sees the drawing again. To understand what happened to Evan Halbrook and the other children in Cohort 7, you have to go back 51 years. to a launch pad in Kazakhstan, to a moment that changed everything. October 4th, 1957. The Soviet Union launches Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite. It's a metal sphere, 23 inches in diameter, weighing 184 pounds. 4 radio antennas trail behind it like the legs of an insect. It orbits Earth every 96 minutes, broadcasting a simple radio signal, beep, beep, beep. In the United States, that beeping sound triggers a crisis. Americans turn on their radios and hear the signal coming from space. They walk outside at night and see the satellite passing overhead, a bright point of light moving across the stars faster than anything has a right to move, and they realise, with sudden and absolute clarity, that they are behind. The Soviet Union, backward, agrarian, devastated by World War II, has beaten America into space. If the Soviets can put a satellite in orbit, they can put a nuclear warhead anywhere. Moscow is 8 hours ahead of Washington. By the time American radar detects a Soviet missile, it will be too late. The Cold War, already simmering, erupts into a full-scale technological arms race that will define the next 3 decades. But the race isn't just about rockets and bombs and satellites, it's about minds. The American government becomes obsessed with a single question: are we falling behind intellectually? President Eisenhower addresses the nation. He says, "The Soviets have demonstrated superior scientific achievement. We must respond not with panic, but with resolve. We must invest in education. We must identify and train the brightest minds of the next generation. The future of the free world depends on it." Congress acts quickly. In 1958, they passed the National Defense Education Act, funneling millions of dollars into science and mathematics education. Schools across the country begin administering standardized tests, looking for children with high IQs, strong problem-solving skills, advanced reasoning abilities. The logic is simple: find the smartest kids, give them the best education. Train them to become the scientists, engineers and strategists who will keep America ahead of the Soviet Union. By the 1970s, gifted education programs, often called GATE or TAG, talented and gifted, are standard in most American school districts. Millions of children are tested every year. Hundreds of thousands are identified as gifted. For most of them, it's legitimate. Advanced coursework, creative enrichment, academic challenges, nothing sinister, but not all of them. Because buried inside the infrastructure of gifted education, hidden within the bureaucracy of school districts and state education offices and federal funding streams, is something else. A secondary screening process, a pipeline, and it's connected to programs that, officially, don't exist. In 1972, the Central Intelligence Agency initiates a classified program called Project Stargate. The goal? Determine whether human beings possess extrasensory perception, ESP, and if so, weaponize it. The program is born from panic. American intelligence agencies receive reports that the Soviet Union is conducting parapsychology research, attempting to develop psychic spies who can read minds, view remote locations and predict future events. The Soviets claim they've achieved breakthroughs. They claim their psychics can penetrate American military facilities without leaving Moscow. The CIA doesn't know if these claims are true, but they can't afford to be wrong. So they launch their own program. For over 2 decades, from 1972 to 1995, the CIA and the Defense Intelligence Agency fund experiments in remote viewing, the ability to perceive distant locations without physical presence, precognition, predicting future events before they occur, telepathy, mind-to-mind communication without speaking or gestures, psychokinesis, influencing physical objects through thought alone. The experiments are conducted at military installations like Fort Meade, Maryland, and research facilities like Stanford Research Institute in California. Participants include military personnel, civilian volunteers, and, in some cases, children. The methodology varies. Some experiments use sensory deprivation tanks to induce altered states of consciousness. Some use meditation and biofeedback training. Some use drugs, LSD, mescaline, psilocybin, to enhance perceptual abilities. The results are mixed. Some subjects demonstrate abilities that defy statistical probability. A remote viewer describes a Soviet military facility in Siberia with 87% accuracy, despite never having been within 3,000 miles of the location. A precognition subject predicts the outcome of random number generation, with success rates far beyond chance. A telepath transmits information to another subject in a separate building, with no possible means of communication. But other subjects show nothing. No abilities, no anomalies, just ordinary human cognition. The program is plagued by inconsistency. Sometimes the psychics are accurate, sometimes they're not. The intelligence community can't rely on information that's only correct some of the time. In 1995, the CIA officially terminates Project Stargate. The conclusion: remote viewing and other paranormal phenomena are not sufficiently reliable for intelligence applications. The program is shut down, the files are archived, the psychics are sent home, but termination doesn't mean deletion. To understand what happened next, you need to know about MK Ultra. MK Ultra was the CIA's mind control program, active from 1953 to 1973. The goal: develop techniques to control human behavior, extract information from unwilling subjects, and create programmable assassins. The experiments were horrific. The CIA dosed unsuspecting civilians with LSD, conducted electroshock therapy on psychiatric patients without consent, developed torture techniques, and tested chemical interrogation methods. At least one subject died. Many more were permanently damaged. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms learned that Congress was about to investigate. He issued an order: destroy all MKUltra records. Most were burned or shredded, but not all of them. A handful of documents survived, discovered years later in financial records that hadn't been flagged for destruction. Among them, a memo dated August 19th, 1973, from Director Helms to the Deputy Director of Plans. Subject: Post-MK Continuation Protocols. The memo reads: following termination of MKUltra operational activities, remaining cognitive research assets will be transitioned to civilian oversight structures. Direct military and intelligence agency involvement presents unacceptable oversight risk. Educational infrastructure provides optimal cover for continuation of juvenile cognition trials. Recommend establishment of liaison protocols with Department of Education. Program codename Gateway. The memo is 3 pages long. Most of it is redacted, but the implication is clear. When MKUltra ended, the research didn't stop. It moved into the one place where no one would think to look: schools. Throughout the 1980s, gifted education programs expand rapidly across the United States. Federal funding increases, more schools adopt GATE programs, more children are tested. On the surface, it's a success story. American education is identifying and nurturing talented students. The next generation of scientists and engineers is being prepared. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. Certain school districts receive additional funding from unusual sources, not just the Department of Education, but also the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, the National Security Agency, NSA. The funding is buried in grant programs with innocuous names: Advanced Learning Research Initiative, Cognitive Development Enhancement Program, Strategic Education Investment. The money funds additional testing beyond standard IQ assessments, specialised curriculum development, enrichment activities at off-site facilities, longitudinal tracking of student outcomes. Most teachers don't know about the secondary funding. Most administrators don't know. The programs look like normal gifted education, advanced math, science enrichment, creative problem solving. but a small subset of students, identified through the secondary testing, are flagged for something different. They're sent to summer programs, leadership institutes, academic camps, all expenses paid, all highly selective, and the children who attend these programs begin to notice something strange. The activities don't feel educational, they feel like experiments. Evan is 9 years old when the letter arrives. It's June 5th, 1999. School has been out for exactly 1 week. He's sitting on the couch watching cartoons when his mother walks into the living room holding a large envelope. "Evan," she says, her voice tight with excitement, "you need to see this." The envelope is made of heavy cardstock, cream-coloured, with a gold seal embossed in the corner. The return address reads, National Youth Leadership Institute, Washington, D.C. Evan opens it. Evan. Inside, a letter printed on matching cardstock. The kind of paper that feels expensive when you touch it. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Halbrook, congratulations. Your son, Evan Michael Halbrook, has been selected to participate in the National Youth Leadership Institute's summer residential program for academically exceptional students. Selection is based on Evan's outstanding performance in standardized assessments and advanced learning programs. This is a highly competitive program with an acceptance rate below 3%. The 2-week residential program will take place June 27th through July 10th at our facility in Arizona. Students will participate in leadership development activities, team-building exercises, and advanced cognitive training designed to prepare them for future academic and professional success. All expenses are covered, including transportation, room and board, and program materials. This opportunity is provided at no cost to participating families. If Evan chooses to accept this opportunity, please complete the attached enrolment forms and return them by June 15th. We look forward to working with your exceptional son. Sincerely, Dr. Marjorie Leland, Program Director. Evan's mother is beaming. This is incredible, honey. Only 3% of students are accepted. You must have really impressed them in your GATE program. Evan's father reads the letter over her shoulder. Arizona in July. It'll be hot, but this is too good an opportunity to pass up. What do you think, Evan? Evan stares at the letter. Dr. Marjorie Leland. The same woman who tested him. The same woman who runs the GATE program. Something about this feels wrong. I don't want to go, Evan says quietly. His mother's smile falters. What? Honey, this is a huge honour. You'd be learning leadership skills, meeting other gifted students. I don't want to go. His father frowns. Why not? Evan doesn't have an answer. Not one that makes sense. Just a feeling in his gut, cold and heavy like swallowing a stone. I just don't want to. His parents exchange glances. His mother kneels down beside him, takes his hand. Evan, I understand it might be scary to be away from home for 2 weeks, but this is a wonderful opportunity. You'll regret it if you don't go. Evan looks at the letter again, at Dr. Leland's name, at the gold seal. He wants to say no, but he's 9 years old, and when adults tell you something is a wonderful opportunity, you don't really have a choice. Okay, he says quietly, I'll go. His mother hugs him. You're going to have an amazing time. But Evan knows, somewhere deep in his bones, in a place that doesn't have words, that this is the beginning of something he won't be able to escape. The van picks him up at 6 a.m. on a Sunday morning. It's white with tinted windows and no markings. The driver's a man in his 40s wearing a polo shirt and khakis. He doesn't introduce himself. There are 5 other children already inside. Evan doesn't recognise any of them. They're all around his age, 9, maybe 10. Nobody speaks. They just stare out the windows as the van pulls away from Evan's house. They drive for 5 hours, through Orange County, through the Inland Empire, through the desert. The landscape changes from suburban sprawl to agricultural fields to empty wasteland. Brown dirt and scrub brush and telephone poles marching toward the horizon. Eventually they turn off the highway onto a smaller road, then onto a dirt road, then through a checkpoint with armed guards and a gate and a sign that reads, Fort Huachuca, U.S. Army Installation. Authorized personnel only. The van is waved through. Fort Huachuca is enormous. Rows of identical buildings painted the same tan colour as the desert. Soldiers in digital camouflage marching in formation. Helicopters taking off and landing, their rotor wash kicking up clouds of dust. Evan presses his face against the window watching. They drive to the far edge of the base, past the barracks and training facilities, to a cluster of buildings that look different from the others. Newer, more modern. White concrete instead of tan. No windows. The van stops in front of the largest building. The driver opens the door. "Out," he says. The children climb out. The heat hits Evan like a physical force, dry and searing, sucking the moisture from his lungs. It must be 110 degrees. A woman is waiting at the entrance. She's wearing civilian clothes, a blue polo shirt and khakis, but she stands like military personnel, spine straight, shoulders back, hands clasped behind her back. "Welcome to the National Youth Leadership Institute," she says. Her voice is flat, emotionless, like she's reading from a script. "My name is Ms. Torres. Over the next 2 weeks you will participate in activities designed to enhance your cognitive and perceptual abilities. You will be challenged. Some exercises may feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is normal and necessary for growth. Trust the process. Follow instructions. Do not discuss the activities with anyone outside this facility. Do you understand?" The children nod. "Good. Follow me." They follow her inside. The building is cold, air conditioning running full blast, dropping the temperature from 110 outside to maybe 60 inside. Evan's skin breaks out in goosebumps. They walk down a long hallway with white walls and fluorescent lights and doors on both sides, all of them closed. At the end of the hallway, Miss Torres opens a door on the right and gestures for them to enter. It's a dormitory. 6 bunk beds arranged along the walls, lockers, a shared bathroom, no windows. "This is where you'll sleep," Ms. Torres says. Lights out at 9 p.m. Wake up is 6 a.m. Meals are communal. You'll eat in the cafeteria with the other cohorts. Do not leave this building unless accompanied by staff. Do not attempt to access restricted areas. Any violation of these rules will result in immediate dismissal from the program and forfeiture of the opportunity. She leaves without another word. The children stand in silence for a moment. Then one of them, a boy with dark hair and glasses, says, "I want to go home." Evan does too, but he doesn't say it out loud. The first exercise takes place on day 2. After breakfast, oatmeal, orange juice, toast. The children are led to a different building. This one is underground. They descend a staircase that seems to go down forever, fluorescent lights flickering overhead, the air growing colder with each step. At the bottom, a door opens into a large room. White walls, white floor, white ceiling, and in the centre of the room, a sensory deprivation tank. It looks like a coffin, or a giant egg. A smooth fiberglass shell, 8 feet long and 4 feet wide, filled with water. The water is perfectly still, reflecting the overhead lights like a mirror. Ms. Torres stands beside the tank. "This exercise is designed to enhance perceptual awareness," she says. "The tank contains water saturated with Epsom salt, which will allow you to float effortlessly. The temperature is calibrated to match your body temperature, 94.5 degrees Fahrenheit, so that after a few minutes you won't be able to distinguish where your body ends and the water begins. There is no light, no sound, no external stimuli, just you and your thoughts." She looks at each child. The experience may be disorienting. Some subjects report visual or auditory hallucinations. This is normal. Your brain, deprived of external input, will generate its own stimuli. Do not be alarmed. You will be monitored at all times. If you experience severe distress, knock on the inside of the tank and you will be removed immediately. She pauses. Who wants to go first? No one volunteers. "You," Miss Torres says, pointing at Evan, "strip down to your underwear and climb in." Evan's heart is pounding. He doesn't want to do this, but he doesn't have a choice. He undresses. The other children look away. He approaches the tank. Miss Torres opens the lid. It swings upward on hydraulic hinges, and Evan climbs in. The water is warm, thick. The salt concentration is so high that he floats immediately, his body rising to the surface without effort. He lies back. His ears are submerged. The world becomes muffled. "Lie still," Miss Torres says. "Try not to move. Just float." The lid closes. Darkness. Complete. Absolute darkness. At first, Evan tries to stay calm. He counts in his head. 1, 2, 3, 4. He tries to keep track of time, but within minutes, time stops making sense. Has he been in here for 5 minutes? 15? An hour? His thoughts begin to fracture. He thinks about his parents. He thinks about school. He thinks about the gate classroom. The thoughts come faster, overlapping, fragmenting. Then he starts to see things. Not with his eyes. His eyes are open, but there's nothing to see. He sees things in his mind. Geometric patterns, fractals, spiralling shapes that pulse and shift. Then he sees people. A woman, standing in a room. She's holding a clipboard. She's wearing a white coat. She's looking at something. A screen, maybe a monitor. Her lips are moving. Evan tries to focus. He tries to see what's on the screen. And then the woman turns, looks directly at him, as if she knows he's watching. "Can you see me?" she asks. Evan tries to answer, but he has no body, no mouth, no voice. He's just awareness, floating in a void. The woman smiles. "Good," she says, and then Evan is pulled out. The lid opens, light floods in, blinding and painful. Hands grab his arms, haul him out of the tank. He's shaking, gasping. His skin is cold despite the warm water. Ms. Torres is standing over him, holding a stopwatch. 90 minutes, she says. She hands him a towel. "Get dressed." Evan wraps the towel around his shoulders. His hands are trembling. "I saw something," he says. Ms. Torres writes something on her clipboard. "What did you see?" "A woman, in a room. She asked if I could see her." Miss Torres doesn't react, just writes. "Good," she says. "Next." The next exercise is called spatial cognition mapping. The children are taken to another room, this one above ground, with natural light streaming through windows high on the walls. In the centre of the room, a maze constructed from movable partitions, each partition about 7 feet tall and covered in grey fabric. "This exercise tests your ability to navigate without visual input, Miss," Torres explains. "You will be blindfolded and placed at the entrance to the maze. Your task is to navigate from the entrance to the exit using only your internal sense of direction. No touching the walls, no feeling your way along. You must walk as if you can see." She holds up a black cloth. "Who's first?" Again no volunteers. "You," she says, pointing at Evan. Evan steps forward. Miss Torres ties the blindfold around his head, tight enough that no light seeps in. The world disappears. "Step into the maze," Miss Torres says. Evan takes a step forward. His hands are outstretched, instinctively reaching for something to hold on to. "No hands," Miss Torres says. "Walk as if you can see." Evan lowers his hands. He takes another step, then another. He has no idea where he is. He turns left, or maybe right. He's already disoriented. He walks forward. 5 steps, 10 steps. He should have hit a wall by now, but he hasn't. He turns again, walks forward, and then suddenly he knows. Not thinks, knows. He knows the maze. He can see it in his mind. Not the physical structure, but the shape of it, the pattern, the flow. He turns right, walks 15 paces, turns left, walks 10 more, turns right again, walks 5, and stops. He reaches out. His hand touches a doorknob. He turns it. Light floods in. He's at the exit. Miss Torres is standing there, stopwatch in hand. Her expression doesn't change, but Evan sees something flicker in her eyes. Surprise? Satisfaction? "How did you know?" she asks. Evan pulls off the blindfold. "I don't know," he says. "I just knew." Ms. Torres writes something on her clipboard. Excellent, she says. On the final day of the programme, July 10th, 1999, the children are taken to a computer lab. It's a large room with 20 workstations, each with a desktop computer and a padded chair. The computers are old, beige towers with CRT monitors, Windows 98 loading screens flickering to life. This is your final assessment, Ms. Torres says. You will complete a probability forecasting exercise. The computer will present you with scenarios, hypothetical situations. Your task is to predict the outcome, not guess. Predict. Trust your instincts. Work quickly. You have 60 minutes. She hands each child a number printed on a card. Evan's number is 7. Sit at the station corresponding to your number, Ms. Torres says. Begin when the timer starts. Evan sits at station 7. The monitor flickers. A dialog box appears. Cognitive Assessment Protocol. Probability Forecasting. Subject. ID 07-0. 3-9-8 date. July 10th, 1999. Begin assessment Y/N. Evan clicks Y. The first scenario appears. A man enters a grocery store at 3:15 p.m. on a Wednesday. The store has 12 aisles. The man is 34 years old, wearing jeans and a blue t-shirt. He's carrying a reusable shopping bag. Will he purchase milk? 2 buttons, yes and no. Evan stares at the screen. This should be impossible to answer. There's no way to know. It's random. But he knows. He clicks no. The next scenario. Flight 447 departs Los Angeles International Airport at 6:30 a.m., bound for Chicago O'Hare. The flight is scheduled to arrive at 12:45 p.m. Central Time. Weather conditions are clear. Will the flight arrive on time? Evan clicks no. The scenarios come faster. A political leader gives a speech at a rally. The crowd is 30,000 people. Will the speech result in violence? Yes. A woman finds a wallet on the sidewalk. The wallet contains $217 and a driver's license. Will she return it to the owner? No. A child takes a math test. The test has 30 questions. The child has studied for 2 hours. Will the child score above 80%? Yes. On and on. Dozens of scenarios. Evan doesn't think. He just clicks. The answers come to him fully formed. Absolute. Certain. When the timer runs out, the screen goes black. A message appears. Assessment complete. Remain seated. Miss Torres walks through the room, checking each workstation. When she reaches Evan's computer, she plugs a USB drive into the tower and downloads something. Then she moves to the next station. 5 minutes later, she returns to the front of the room. Congratulations, she says. You've completed the National Youth Leadership Institute program. You will be transported back to your homes tomorrow morning. Thank you for your participation. That night, lying in his bunk, Evan stares at the ceiling and thinks about the test. He'll never know his score. But years later, decades later, when he finally accesses his records, he'll discover that he was correct 89% of the time. A statistical impossibility. Evan is 11 years old, 6th grade. It's a Tuesday morning, sunny and warm, the kind of California day where the sky's so blue it hurts to look at. First period, math class. Evan is working on a worksheet when the intercom crackles to life. Attention all students and staff. Please report to the multi-purpose room immediately for an emergency assembly. All classes are suspended until further notice. The classroom erupts in confused chatter. Emergency assembly. What happened? They file into the multi-purpose room. The entire school, 400 students packed onto the floor, sitting cross-legged, whispering. The teachers stand along the walls, their faces grim. The principal, Dr. Hammond, stands at the front of the room. He's holding a microphone. He looks like he hasn't slept. Students, he says, his voice echoing over the speakers. Something terrible has happened this morning. There has been an attack on our country. Planes have crashed into buildings in New York City and Washington, D.C. Many people have been hurt. Many have died. The room is silent. We don't know all the details yet, Doctor. Hammond continues. But we want you to know that you are safe here. Your parents are being notified. Some of you may be picked up early. For now, we ask that you stay calm and stay together. The assembly ends. The students are herded back to their classrooms, but nobody can focus. The teachers turn on the television, and everyone watches in silence as the Twin Towers burn. At noon, the intercom crackles again. Will the following students please report to the gate portable? Evan Halbrook, Lena Crow, Marcus Tate, Sophie Ruiz. The list continues. 12 names, the entire gate cohort. Evan walks across the playground, past groups of students sitting on the grass, crying. The portable classroom door is open. Mr. Calloway is inside, standing at the front of the room. "Sit down," he says. The 12 students sit. "Mr." Calloway closes the door. "I know today has been difficult," he says. "What happened in New York is a tragedy. But I want you to understand something important. The world is changing, and we need people who can help us understand how it will change." He hands out blank sheets of paper. "I want you to write down your predictions," he says. Not guesses, predictions. What will happen next? What will the world look like in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years? Write down everything that comes to mind, the students write. Evan closes his eyes. Images flash through his mind. A desert, soldiers, burning oil fields, a statue being pulled down, explosions, smoke, chaos. He writes, "The United States will invade Iraq within 2 years. The war will last more than a decade. Thousands of American soldiers will die. Hundreds of thousands of Iraqi civilians will die. The Middle East will destabilize. New terrorist organizations will emerge. The conflict will spread. He doesn't know how he knows, but he's certain." Mr. Calloway collects the papers. "Thank you," he says. "You can go." On March 19th, 2003, exactly 18 months after Evan wrote his prediction, the United States invades Iraq. Evan is 13 years old. He's sitting in his living room watching CNN when the first bombs fall on Baghdad. The sky lights up. Explosions bloom across the screen. Reporters describe the beginning of Operation Iraqi Freedom. Evan feels something cold settle in his stomach. He was right. Middle school, 8th grade. Evan is 14 years old when he receives another letter from the GATE program. It arrives in a plain white envelope, no gold seal this time. The letterhead reads, Orange County Educational Research Partnership. Dear Evan, as part of our ongoing commitment to understanding cognitive development in gifted students, we are conducting a research study in partnership with the University of California. The study involves non-invasive brain imaging to better understand how advanced learners process information. We are inviting select GATE students to participate. The procedure is simple. You will undergo an fMRI scan while completing cognitive tasks similar to those you've done in class. The entire process takes approximately 90 minutes. Participation is voluntary but highly encouraged. All data will be kept confidential and used solely for educational research purposes. If you're interested in participating, please have your parents sign the attached consent form. Sincerely, Dr. Marjorie Leland Evans' parents think it's a wonderful opportunity. They're studying how your brain works, his mother says. This could help other gifted kids. Evan signs the form. 3 weeks later, he's lying inside an fMRI machine at a research facility adjacent to UC Irvine. The machine is a massive white tube that hums and clicks and makes sounds like industrial machinery. Evan wears headphones. A screen is positioned above his face. A voice comes through the headphones. We're going to show you a series of images. Just look at them. Don't try to analyze. Just observe. The images flash on the screen. Geometric patterns, photographs of faces, sequences of numbers, random shapes. Then the voice says, "Now we're going to show you scenarios. Predict the outcome before it's revealed." A scenario appears. A car approaches an intersection. The light is yellow. Will the driver stop or continue? Evan predicts, continue. The answer appears, continue. Another scenario. A child drops a glass. Will it break? Evan predicts, yes. The answer, yes, on and on. Dozens of scenarios. Evan's predictions are correct 86% of the time. When the scan finishes, a technician helps him out of the machine. Great job, the technician says. Your brain activity was fascinating. Evan asks, what did you see? The technician hesitates. I can't discuss specific results, but your prefrontal cortex was activating before the scenarios appeared on screen, like your brain was making decisions before you consciously received the information. Is that normal? No, the technician says quietly, it's not. Over the next 2 years, Evan undergoes 3 more scans. Each time the same pattern emerges. His brain makes decisions milliseconds before he's consciously aware of making them. His neural activity predicts outcomes before they occur. The researchers never explain why. They just take their data and thank him for his participation. Years later, when Evan finally accesses his medical records, he'll discover that every scan was funded by DARPA through a grant titled Predictive Neural Architecture in Juvenile Subjects, Applications for Strategic Intelligence. Evan is 15 when Lena Crow dies. It's October 7th, 2005, a Friday night. Lena is driving home from a friend's house on a straight, empty road in Yorba Linda. No traffic, no rain, clear visibility. Her car veers off the road at 70 miles per hour and hits a telephone pole head-on. She dies instantly. The police report notes no skid marks, no evidence of braking, no mechanical failure, no drugs or alcohol in her system. The official conclusion, driver error, possibly fell asleep. Evan attends the funeral. He stands in the back of the church watching Lena's parents sob over a closed casket. He remembers the silent communication exercise, her pale green eyes, the voice he heard but couldn't understand. Something feels wrong about her death, but he doesn't know what. A year later, Marcus Tate dies, November the 12th, 2006. Marcus is 19, attending community college. He jumps from the roof of a parking garage in downtown Anaheim. 4 stories, no witnesses, no suicide note. His parents tell the newspaper he'd been struggling with depression, but Evan remembers Marcus differently. Quiet, yes, but not depressed. Contemplative, thoughtful. At the funeral, Evan sits next to Sophie Ruiz. She's crying. This doesn't make sense, she whispers. Marcus was planning to transfer to Berkeley. He was excited about it. Why would he? She doesn't finish the sentence. Sophie Ruiz dies 8 months later. July 23rd, 2007. She's 19 years old, enrolled in Army ROTC at Cal State Fullerton. She's participating in a summer training exercise at Fort Benning, Georgia. A routine navigation drill in wooded terrain. She falls from a cliff. 40-foot drop. Broken neck. Dead before the medics arrive. The Army's investigation concludes accidental death. Lost her footing on wet rocks. But when Evan reads the report years later, he notices something strange. Sophie fell during daylight hours, on a clear day, on a trail she'd hiked successfully 3 times that week. And she fell in the opposite direction from the trail, like she'd walked deliberately toward the cliff edge. By 2007, 5 members of Cohort 7 are dead. Lena Crow, car accident. Marcus Tate, apparent suicide. Sophie Ruiz, training accident. Daniel Chen, drowned in a swimming pool at a party. Excellent swimmer. Ashley Morrison, house fire, only victim. Fire started in a bedroom. Smoke alarm batteries removed. Evan starts keeping a list. He writes down every name he remembers from the GATE program. He tracks them down through social media, yearbooks, public records. Of the original 32 students in Cohort 7, 14 are dead by 2010. The pattern is undeniable and impossible to prove. Evan is 34 years old. He works as a data analyst for a tech company in San Diego. He's good at his job: pattern recognition, statistical modelling, predictive algorithms. The skills come naturally, almost too naturally. He hasn't thought about GATE in years, or rather he's tried not to think about it. But the memories linger like scars that ache when the weather changes. Then, on a Tuesday night in late January, he's scrolling through Reddit when he finds it. A post in a conspiracy theory subreddit titled, "Anyone else remember Gate program acting weird?" The post reads, "I was in Gate in the 90s, Southern California. Anyone else remember the exercises being off? Like not actually educational, more like psychological tests, sensory deprivation, probability prediction? Anyone else remember being sent to summer programs at military bases? Or is this just me?" The post has 273 comments. Evan reads them all. "Oh my god, yes! I thought I was crazy. They made us stare into each other's eyes for 10 minutes. I remember drawing a place I'd never been, and the teacher took my drawing and I never saw it again. They asked us to predict the future, like literally predict things that hadn't happened yet. I went to a summer program at Fort Huachuca. They put me in a sensory deprivation tank. I was 9 years old." Evan's hands are shaking. He creates a Reddit account. He writes, "I was in Cohort 7, Orange County, 1998 to 2002. Everything you described happened to me too. I've been trying to forget it for 20 years, but I can't anymore. Within an hour, 17 people have sent him direct messages. One message stands out. It's from a user named Dr. Nina P. Evan, if you're serious about investigating this, we need to talk. I was in Gate 2, different cohort but same program. I became a neuroscientist specifically to understand what they did to us. I have evidence. We should meet." Evan responds, "Where?" They meet at a coffee shop in Oakland, California. Dr. Nina Patel is 33 years old with short black hair, sharp brown eyes, and the exhausted look of someone who hasn't slept well in months. She sits down across from Evan without preamble. "I've been tracking former Gate students for 5 years, she says. I found 267 people who went through programs similar to ours, different cities, different states, but the same exercises, the same testing, the same summer programs. And, Evan asks, 47 of them are dead. The mortality rate for former Gate students is 3.2 times higher than the general population. Most deaths occur between ages 18 and 25. The causes are listed as accidents, suicides, or unexplained medical events." Evan's throat is dry. "Lena, Marcus, Sophie." Nina nods. "I knew them. Not personally, but their names are in the database. Cohort 7 had the highest attrition rate of any cohort I've tracked. 56% mortality by 2015. Why? I don't know, but I have a theory." She pulls out her laptop. "I scanned my own brain last year. Functional MRI. I was running baseline cognition tests, pattern recognition, decision-making, probability prediction. And I found something." She turns the screen toward Evan. It shows a cross-section of a human brain, lit up in false colour, reds and yellows and blues marking different regions of activity. "See this?" She points to a region in the prefrontal cortex. "This is where executive function happens. Planning, decision-making, impulse control. In most people, this area activates after they're presented with a stimulus. They see a problem, then their brain decides how to respond." She zooms in on the image. "In my brain, this area activates before the stimulus appears. Milliseconds before. My brain is making decisions before I'm consciously aware there's a decision to make." Evan stares at the image. "That's impossible." "That's what I thought. So I tested other people. Former Gate students I tracked down. Same pattern. All of us. Our brains are wired differently. We process information before it arrives. We make predictions before we have data. We know things before we should be able to know them. They were looking for this. They were creating this," Nina says. "The exercises, the testing, the sensory deprivation, the probability forecasting. They were training our brains to process information in non-linear ways, to predict outcomes, to see patterns that don't exist yet." "Why would they do that?" Nina closes her laptop. "Because the intelligence community has a problem. Traditional intelligence gathering, human sources, signals intercepts, satellite imagery is reactive. By the time analysts identify a threat, it's often too late. What they need is anticipatory intelligence, the ability to predict threats before they materialize. And they think we can do that. I think they know we can do that. The question is, at what cost? 2 weeks after meeting Nina, Evan receives an email from an anonymous sender. The subject line reads, "You're asking the right questions." The email contains a single attachment, a PDF document 47 pages long titled Cognitive Asset Development Initiative, Operational Summary, Fiscal Year 2004. Evan opens it. The document is a program review, written in the sterile language of government bureaucracy. It describes a multi-year project jointly funded by the Department of Education, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, and the Office of Naval Intelligence. The stated goal: identify and develop juveniles demonstrating enhanced anticipatory cognition for future integration into strategic intelligence operations. The document lists testing criteria: pattern recognition, exceeding 95th percentile, demonstrable intuitive decision-making under uncertainty, emotional regulation during high-stress scenarios, neural synchronization during group tasks. It describes Phase 1 as identification, using standardized testing within public school gifted programs to screen millions of children. Phase 2 is described as development, targeted cognitive enhancement exercises conducted at select sites, including Fort Huachuca, Arizona, and Tonopah Test Range, Nevada. Phase 3 is listed as redacted. At the bottom of the document, a signature: Thomas Kessler, Program Director, CADI. Evan searches for the name. Thomas Kessler, former contractor with the Department of Education. Current status: retired. Living in Arlington, Virginia. Evan sends him a LinkedIn message. I was in Gate. Cohort 7. I have questions. 3 days later, Kessler responds, "Meet me in person. No phones, no recordings. Come alone. I'll tell you everything." They meet in a public park. Kessler is 68 years old, grey-haired, wearing a windbreaker despite the mild March weather. He looks over his shoulder 3 times before sitting on the bench beside Evan. "You shouldn't be digging into this," Kessler says without preamble. "I need to know what you did to us." Kessler sighs. He looks old, tired. "You were part of an experiment, a very expensive, very secretive experiment. The goal was to determine whether certain cognitive abilities, precognition, intuitive threat detection, enhanced pattern recognition, could be identified in childhood and developed through targeted intervention. Why children? Because adult brains are already formed. Neural plasticity peaks in childhood. If you wanted to rewire cognition, you had to start early." "Did it work?" Kessler hesitates. "Depends what you mean by work. Some of you demonstrated abilities that defied statistical explanation, predictive accuracy rates that were unsettling, but the program was terminated in 2006. Why? Ethical exposure risk. Too many parents asking questions. Too many kids showing psychological trauma. And..." He pauses. "Too many deaths." Evan's blood runs cold. "You knew." "We knew there were side effects. Neural modifications sometimes caused instability, depression, anxiety, paranoia. Some subjects couldn't handle what they were seeing. Information overload, basically. They knew too much, felt too much, and their brains couldn't process it. So you just let them die." "We didn't let them." Kessler stops, rubs his face. "The cost-benefit analysis didn't justify continuation, so they shut it down in 2006, archived the data, dissolved the infrastructure. But you kept monitoring us. Passive surveillance, academic records, medical data, employment history. They wanted to see if the effects persisted into adulthood." Evan's hands are clenched into fists. "We were children. I know. You helped them do this. I know." Kessler looks at him. "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know, and because..." He hesitates. "Because it might be starting again." "What?" "I don't have proof, but I've heard things. A new program, different name, same goals. They learned from the mistakes of CADI. They're being more careful this time, more selective, better protocols. When? I don't know, but if you're experiencing anything unusual, dreams, visions, predictions that come true, you need to be careful, because that means they're watching, and if they think you're useful, he trails off. What happens if they think I'm useful? Kessler stands. They activate you. Evan can't let it go. The drawing, the image from his childhood, the desert facility with the radar domes. It's haunted him for 26 years. He starts searching satellite imagery, Google Earth, government databases. He inputs coordinates for areas near Fort Huachuca, expanding the search radius in concentric circles, and then he finds it. 37 miles northwest of Fort Huachuca, near the edge of the Tonopah Test Range in Nevada, there's a cluster of buildings, low concrete structures, no windows, and behind them 3 massive radar domes, white and smooth, exactly as he drew them when he was 9 years old. The facility is listed in government records as a decommissioned education research annex. The last recorded activity, 2012. Evan downloads every satellite image he can find. He cross-references entry logs from declassified documents. Visitors to the site between 1998 and 2012 included Department of Defense personnel, DARPA contractors, Office of Naval Intelligence officers, educational psychologist Dr. Marjorie Leland, 17 documented visits. He finds archived video footage, grainy, recorded on a camcorder in 2006. It shows children in a white room sitting in a circle wearing headphones. They're staring at a projection screen showing images of disasters, floods, fires, explosions, terrorist attacks. The children are given tablets. They're asked to rank the probability of each event occurring within the next 6 months. When the results are compiled, the collective accuracy rate is 87% above baseline statistical probability. One child is identified in the footage by name, Evan Halbrook. He doesn't remember being there, but he recognises his own face. In late January 2025, Evan starts having dreams, not normal dreams, vivid, hyper-detailed visions that feel more real than waking life. He dreams of a city, burning, smoke rising into a red sky, people running, sirens wailing, buildings collapsing. He wakes up at 3 a.m, heart pounding, and writes it down. Major city, fire, chaos, mass evacuation, soon. 3 days later, he receives a message on the Reddit Gate forum from Nina. Are you dreaming? He calls her immediately. I've been having the same dream, she says. A city on fire, chaos, people running. It started 2 weeks ago, and I'm not the only one. I've gotten messages from 12 other people, all former GATE students, all having the same vision. What does it mean? I don't know, but it started right after a classified DARPA project was activated. I have a friend in defence contracting. She told me there's a new initiative, something involving predictive AI and human cognition integration. It launched January 1st. They're activating us. I think they are. Over the next 3 months, the dreams intensify. Evan sees the same symbols over and over, triangles inside circles, geometric patterns, sequences of numbers, 22825. Other cohort members report the same thing. They're all seeing the same symbols, drawing them, dreaming them. Nina runs tests. She scans the brains of 6 former GATE students while they sleep. Their brainwaves are synchronized, not similar, identical. They did something to us, Nina says. Something permanent. We're connected, networked, and now something is activating that network. On February 15th, Evan has a different dream, more specific. He sees a date, February 28th, 2025. He sees a location, Los Angeles International Airport. He sees an event, Terminal 4, explosion, 3:17 p.m. He wakes up, shaking. He writes it down. Then he checks the Reddit forum. 17 people have posted the exact same prediction. February 28th arrives. Evan spends the entire day watching news feeds, his heart in his throat. At 3:15 Pacific time, CNN breaks into regular programming. We're receiving reports of an incident at Los Angeles International Airport. Details are still emerging, but there appears to have been an explosion in Terminal 4. Emergency services are responding. We'll bring you more information as it becomes available. Evan stares at the screen. His entire body is numb. He was right. They were all right. On March 3rd, Evan receives another email from Thomas Kessler. Subject line: Phase 2 was never cancelled. The attachment is a document dated December 2024. 53 pages. Classified. Title: Gate X. Next Generation Cognitive Asset Integration. Evan reads it. His hands tremble. The document describes a new program, not a continuation of the original GATE initiative. Something bigger, coordinated across multiple agencies, DARPA, NSA, DIA, even private contractors. The goal: create a distributed intelligence network using human beings with enhanced predictive cognition, not individual operatives, a hive mind, and the test subjects, the children from the original GATE cohorts, now adults, their brains still wired with the neural modifications implanted decades ago. The activation date, January 1st, 2025. Evan scrolls to the final page. There's a list: names, addresses, biometric data. 32 names. The original Cohort 7 from 1998. 18 are still alive, all monitored, all activated, and at the bottom of the page, a new section: GATEX Phase 1 Intake, Projected Cohort, 2,847 subjects. A list of schools, a list of children, hundreds of them, flagged through modern standardized testing, identified for advanced cognitive assessment. The program never ended. It evolved. Evan drives to Sycamore Hills Elementary on a Wednesday morning. The school looks the same. The playground, the flagpole, the portable classroom behind the chain-link fence. He parks across the street and watches. At 9:15 a.m, a woman in a grey blazer walks out of the main building. She's carrying a clipboard. Mid-30s, professional, cold. She enters a classroom. 10 minutes later, she emerges with a child. A boy, maybe 8 years old. Dark hair, glasses. He's carrying a folder. They walk toward the portable classroom. Evan gets out of his car. He crosses the street. He's not sure what he's going to do. He just knows he has to see. The boy is holding his folder loosely. As he passes Evan, the folder slips from his hands. Papers scatter across the sidewalk. Evan bends down to help. He picks up one of the sheets. At the top, in red ink, a triangle inside a circle. The exact same symbol from 26 years ago. The boy looks at him. His eyes are brown, serious, older than they should be. "Thank you," the boy says quietly. Evan hands him the paper. He wants to say something, warn him, tell him to run, anything. But what can he say? "Be careful," Evan finally manages. The boy doesn't respond. He just turns and walks toward the portable classroom. The door opens automatically as he approaches. He steps inside. The door closes. Evan stands there, frozen, watching. And somewhere, far away, in a facility buried beneath concrete and secrecy, buried under a desert with 3 white radar domes gleaming in the sun, a system activates. Data streams in. Neural patterns synchronize. Predictions are calculated. The future is being written. One child at a time. Evan, Nina, and Thomas Kessler compile everything. Decades of documents. Testimonies from 53 former GATE students. Leaked footage. Neurological scans. Financial records showing money flowing from intelligence agencies to school districts. They bring it to journalists. The New York Times. Washington Post. ProPublica. On April 23rd, 2025, the story breaks. Secret government program use schools to identify and develop children with psychic abilities. The response is explosive. Congressional hearings are called. The Department of Education issues a statement denying any involvement. DARPA releases a press release calling the allegations unfounded conspiracy theories based on misinterpreted educational research. Dr. Marjorie Leland cannot be located. Her last known address is abandoned. Her professional credentials have been scrubbed from university databases. Parents pull their children from gifted programs nationwide. Lawsuits are filed, hundreds of them. Former cohort members come forward, sharing their experiences, demanding accountability. The Oversight Committee launches an investigation, but the evidence keeps disappearing. Documents are lost. Witnesses recant. Facilities are demolished. The paper trail evaporates. Within 6 months, the story fades from headlines. Too complex, too conspiratorial, too easy to dismiss. 2 years later. March 2027. Evan is sitting in his apartment in San Diego when he receives a package. No return address. Inside, a USB drive. He plugs it into his computer. A single file, video footage dated February 2027. It shows a classroom. Children sitting in a circle. White walls, tinted windows. The teacher is young, male, wire-rimmed glasses. He's not Mr. Calloway, but he stands the same way. Talks the same way. "You're here because you're different," the teacher says. "Not better, different." The children listen. One of them is the boy from Sycamore Hills Elementary, the boy who dropped his folder. He's drawing something on a piece of paper. Evan zooms in on the video. The drawing shows a desert, 3 radar domes, a cluster of buildings, the exact same image Evan drew when he was 9 years old. The video ends. Evan stares at the black screen. Then he picks up his phone and calls Nina. "They're still doing it," he says. "I know," Nina replies. "I've been tracking the new cohorts. They're calling it something different now. Advanced Cognitive Development Initiative. But it's the same program, same exercises, same facilities. How many children? At least 3,000. Possibly more." Evan closes his eyes. "We have to stop them. We tried. The story came out. Nothing changed. So what do we do?" Nina is silent for a long time. Then, "We warn them. The children. We find them. We tell them what's happening. We give them a choice we never had. And if they don't believe us, then at least they'll know to be afraid." March 2028. A child sits in a portable classroom. 9 years old. Brown eyes, nervous hands. A teacher stands at the front of the room. "We're going to do an exercise," the teacher says. "I want you to close your eyes and draw a place you've never been." The child closes their eyes. An image forms. A desert, buildings, radar domes. But before the child opens their eyes, before they put pencil to paper, their phone vibrates. A text message from an unknown number. Whatever they tell you to draw, don't draw it. Whatever they tell you to predict, say you don't know. Whatever they tell you you're capable of, pretend you're not. You're not different. You're not special. You're just a kid. Remember that. Stay a kid as long as you can. Don't let them take that from you. Someone who got out the child deletes the message, opens their eyes, picks up the pencil, and draws a house, a tree, a sun, a dog. Normal things, safe things, things that 9-year-olds draw. The teacher walks by, glances at the drawing, moves on without comment. The child exhales. Outside, across the street, Evan sits in his car, watching, waiting. He sends the same message to 17 other children, 17 names on a list he obtained through channels he'll never disclose. Most won't listen. Most will draw the facility. Most will demonstrate the abilities. Most will be flagged. But maybe one will listen. Maybe one will hide what they can do. Maybe one will escape. And that's enough. Because the program will continue. It always continues. New names, new cover stories, new facilities. But so will the resistance. One child at a time. One warning at a time. One person who got out, trying to save the next generation from being weaponized. The war for these children's minds isn't over, it's just beginning. Tonight's journey takes us beneath the peaceful farmland of the Swiss-French border, into the depths of the world's most ambitious scientific experiment. A huge thank you to Javiera Miss Chouet, Ahmad, Louis-22, and Chris for suggesting we explore this topic. You asked for it, and here we are. Picture this: 17 miles of circular tunnel, buried 100 metres underground, constructed at a cost approaching $9 billion, built for one purpose: to recreate the first moments after the Big Bang. Scientists call it the Large Hadron Collider. But what if the people studying the birth of the universe are simultaneously tearing holes in the fabric of reality itself? The fields above Geneva look unremarkable. Cows graze, farmers tend their land, families picnic on hillsides that roll gently toward the Alps. But beneath this pastoral scene lies something extraordinary: the world's largest scientific instrument. The Large Hadron Collider sits in a ring-shaped tunnel that crosses international borders, threading through Switzerland and France without most residents even knowing it's there. The facility is operated by CERN, the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, founded back in 1954 when the ashes of World War II were still fresh, and scientists dreamed of uniting Europe through shared discovery rather than dividing it through conflict. The machine's purpose sounds simple enough: accelerate protons to near-light speed and smash them together to study the fundamental building blocks of reality. But here's where things get interesting. Since the Collider's first full power run back in 2008, a strange pattern emerged: global glitches, unexplained phenomena in the sky. The sudden rise of the Mandela effect, where millions of people remember history differently than it actually occurred. Mass digital outages that seem to cascade across continents without clear cause, and every single time when you trace the dates backward, you find the same thing. The Large Hadron Collider was running at high power. Coincidence? Maybe. But the pattern is undeniable enough that it spawned one of the most persistent conspiracy theories of the 21st century. The theory that CERN isn't just studying the universe, they're changing it. What most people don't know is that beneath Geneva, CERN stores antimatter, the mirror opposite of normal matter. When matter and antimatter meet, they annihilate completely, converting all their mass directly into energy according to Einstein's famous equation. A single gram of antimatter reacting with a gram of matter would release an explosion equivalent to a nuclear bomb. The amount stored at CERN is minuscule, measured in nanograms, but it exists. Contained in magnetic bottles deep underground, suspended in vacuum, held mere atoms away from the container walls. One mistake, one power failure, one miscalculation. That's all it would take. Achid 1. The promise of science. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. Construction of the Large Hadron Collider began in 1998, built into an existing tunnel that once housed an earlier particle accelerator. The project took a decade and required unprecedented international cooperation. Thousands of scientists, engineers and technicians from dozens of countries worked together to create something that pushed the absolute limits of human engineering. The tunnel itself runs in a circle 27 kilometres in circumference, buried between 50 and 175 metres below the surface. Why underground? Because a project this massive would be impossible to build above ground, and the stable bedrock provides crucial stability for experiments that require precision down to fractions of a nanometer. But there's another reason. One CERN doesn't advertise. The depth provides natural shielding from cosmic rays and the electromagnetic interference. It also provides secrecy. Whatever happens in that tunnel happens hidden from public view, monitored only by the scientists who operate it and the governments who fund it. On September 10th, 2008, the moment finally arrived. The first beam of protons successfully circulated through the entire ring. Scientists at CERN headquarters erupted in applause. It was a triumph of human ingenuity, the culmination of decades of theoretical physics made real. But 9 days later, disaster struck. On September 19th, a faulty electrical connection between two superconducting magnets caused a catastrophic helium leak. Liquid helium, used to cool the magnets to near absolute zero, vaporized explosively. The resulting pressure wave damaged 53 magnets, each weighing several tons. The entire system had to be shut down. The official explanation was equipment failure, a design flaw in the electrical connections that nobody caught during testing. But conspiracy theorists noted something strange. The failure happened just days after the first successful circulation, during the initial attempts to ramp up to collision energy, as if something in the system didn't want to be activated, as if the universe itself was pushing back. Repairs took over a year. It wasn't until March 30th, 2010 that collision experiments finally began. The proton beams, travelling in opposite directions, around the ring, were guided into head-on collisions at energies of 7 trillion electron volts, 7 TeV in the shorthand of particle physics. And then they started finding things. The primary target was something called the Higgs boson, a theoretical particle predicted back in 1964 by physicist Peter Higgs and several colleagues. According to the standard model of particle physics, the Higgs boson is responsible for giving all other particles their mass. Without it, electrons, quarks, and every other fundamental particle would be massless, unable to form atoms, and the universe as we know it couldn't exist. It was nicknamed the God particle, a term physicists actually hate because it oversimplifies the science and sounds grandiose. But the name stuck in popular culture because it captured something essential. This was the particle that explained how creation itself works, the particle that holds reality together. Finding it required sifting through trillions upon trillions of particle collisions, looking for a specific signature that would only appear for a fraction of a second before the Higgs boson decayed into other particles. Two massive detector systems, ATLAS and CMS, worked independently to avoid confirmation bias. Both teams analysed their data separately, not sharing results until they were certain. On July 4th, 2012, CERN held a press conference. Director General Rolf Hoyer stood before a room packed with scientists and journalists. Fabiola Gianotti, who led one of the detector teams and would later become CERN Director General herself, presented the findings. "We observe in our data clear signs of a new particle," she announced, "at the level of 5 sigma. In statistical terms, 5 sigma means there's less than 1 in 3.5 million chance the signal is random noise. It was conclusive. They'd found it. The Higgs boson was real." Peter Higgs, then 83 years old, sat in the audience with tears streaming down his face. The particle that bore his name, predicted nearly 50 years earlier, had finally been discovered. The following year, he and François Englert shared the Nobel Prize in Physics. It should have been pure celebration, the crowning achievement of modern physics, and for scientists it was. But outside the academic world, something else was brewing. Online forums exploded with a different kind of reaction. Hundreds of threads appeared, all asking the same question. Did CERN just break the universe? Because something strange happened in the weeks following the announcement. People started noticing things, small things at first, memories that didn't match reality, logos that looked wrong, movie quotes that had changed, geography that seemed off. The Mandela effect was about to explode into public consciousness, and it was going to change everything. AC2, the strange signs and the shifting reality. The conspiracy theories started almost immediately, but they didn't solidify into a coherent narrative until strange incidents began accumulating. August 2016. A video goes viral showing several people wearing dark robes gathered at night in front of a statue on CERN's campus. The statue depicts Shiva Nataraja, the Hindu god of cosmic creation and destruction, a gift from the Indian government installed back in 2004. In the video, the robed figures seem to be conducting some kind of ritual. Then, in full view of the camera, one figure appears to stab another. The internet lost its mind. CERN responded quickly, confirming the video was real but dismissing it as a prank by visiting scientists meant to play into the conspiracy theories. They said they'd identified the people involved and handled it internally, but they refused to release any additional footage from their security cameras, citing privacy concerns. To conspiracists, this was confirmation. Why hide the full footage if it was just a harmless prank? What were they trying to conceal? And why would scientists, supposedly rational people dedicated to empirical truth, stage a mock human sacrifice in front of a statue representing cosmic destruction? Unless it wasn't entirely a mock ritual, unless there was something more happening that night. That same year, another pattern emerged. During several high-energy test runs, brief technical outages at the facility coincided with regional power fluctuations across parts of France and Switzerland. Nothing catastrophic, just momentary brownouts and voltage irregularities. CERN's official explanation was that the collider draws enormous amounts of power during operation, about the same as a medium-sized city, and this can stress the local grid. Fair enough. But then something happened that even skeptics found hard to dismiss as pure coincidence. In July 2016, LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory in the United States, detected gravitational waves from a cosmic event billions of light-years away. This was groundbreaking science, the kind of discovery that makes headlines worldwide. But what most people don't know is that the detection occurred within hours of CERN conducting specialised proton-led collision tests. Was there a connection? Mainstream physicists said absolutely not. The gravitational waves detected by LIGO came from distant black holes merging, events that happened long before Earth even existed. The timing was pure coincidence. But here's where it gets interesting. Some theoretical physicists, operating on the fringes of accepted science, have proposed that high-energy particle collisions might create ripples in space-time, microscopic gravitational waves that could theoretically resonate with larger cosmic events. The mathematics is speculative, far from proven, but it's not completely impossible. What if CERN's experiments didn't cause the gravitational wave detection, but rather amplified it? What if there's some kind of quantum entanglement between human experiments and cosmic phenomena? What if, by recreating the conditions of the Big Bang, we're somehow connecting ourselves to other moments in space-time when those conditions existed. It sounds like science fiction. But so did gravitational waves themselves until we detected them. The Mandela Effect Timeline. Around 2012, shortly after the Higgs boson discovery, internet forums began filling with reports of the Mandela Effect. Named after a widespread false memory that Nelson Mandela died in prison in the 1980s, when he actually lived until 2013, the phenomenon describes situations where large groups of people remember historical events, brand names or cultural details differently than reality. But let's get specific about the timeline, because the correlation is disturbing. July 4th, 2012. CERN announces the Higgs boson discovery. July through September 2012. The first major wave of Mandela Effect reports appears on Reddit, 4chan, and conspiracy forums. People start documenting memories that don't match recorded history. The examples are oddly specific. The Berenstain Bears children's book series. Thousands of people, many of them former teachers and librarians who read these books professionally, insist the name was spelled Berenstain with an E. They remember it clearly. Some claim to have childhood books with the correct spelling, but every verifiable copy in existence shows Berenstain with an A. Publishers' records going back to the 1960s confirm it was always Berenstain. How do you explain thousands of people misremembering the same spelling in the same way? The Monopoly Man, rich Uncle Pennybags. Millions of people remember him wearing a monocle. If you ask someone to describe the Monopoly mascot, they'll almost certainly mention the monocle, but he never wore one. Not in any official game version, not in any advertisement, never. The image exists only in collective false memory, the Fruit of the Loom logo. Countless people remember the cornucopia, the Horn of Plenty, behind the fruit. Some remember learning what a cornucopia was specifically because of this logo. But Fruit of the Loom has never used a cornucopia in their branding. The company has confirmed this repeatedly. These are just the famous examples. The lists go on for hundreds of entries. Geography that seems wrong. Brands spelled differently than remembered. Movie quotes that changed. Historical events that happened differently than people recall. Famous people who died at different times or in different ways than collective memory suggests. And here's the thing that keeps conspiracy theorists up at night. The intensity of Mandela Effect reports corresponds almost perfectly with CERN's operational schedule. An independent researcher using the name Elias Carter did a statistical analysis that CERN refuses to address. Carter obtained the LHC's public run logs, which show when the collider operates and at what energy levels. He then scraped thousands of Mandela Effect reports from various online platforms, extracting the dates when people first noticed discrepancies. His findings, major energy spikes at CERN preceded waves of Mandela Effect reports by an average of 30 to 60 days. The correlation was statistically significant, even accounting for publication bias and increased media attention. Carter's interpretation: reality shifts don't happen instantaneously. They propagate outward from the collision point, moving through space-time like ripples in a pond. People notice the changes gradually as the new timeline stabilizes and overwrites the old one. Those who notice fastest are those most sensitive to these shifts, or perhaps those whose consciousness exists slightly out of phase with consensus reality. Mainstream scientists dismissed Carter's work entirely, pointing out massive methodological flaws. The sample sizes were inconsistent, the date ranges were cherry-picked. He failed to control for social media algorithms that would naturally create clustering effects. And fundamentally, the entire premise violated established physics. But Carter had an answer for that last objection. He pointed to the measurement problem in quantum mechanics, the observer effect, the double-slit experiment showing that observation changes quantum outcomes. He argued that consciousness might play a role in collapsing quantum superpositions, and if CERN was creating conditions where multiple realities briefly overlapped, perhaps some observers retained memories from the superseded timeline. It's speculation built on speculation. but it's internally consistent speculation that explains a phenomenon mainstream science can't adequately address. Because the one thing everyone agrees on is that the Mandela effect is real as a psychological phenomenon. Millions of people do share these specific false memories. The disagreement is only about why. The D-Wave connection. In 2013, the conspiracy took another turn when researchers discovered a possible connection to D-Wave Systems, a Canadian company building quantum computers. D-Wave's computers operate on completely different principles than classical computers. Instead of bits that are either 1 or 0, they use qubits that can exist in superposition, simultaneously representing both states until measured. The computers are kept at temperatures near absolute zero, colder than deep space, and use quantum annealing to solve optimization problems by exploring all possible solutions simultaneously across quantum states. In other words, D-Wave computers briefly create conditions where multiple computational realities exist at once. CERN announced in November 2013 that they'd be using D-Wave quantum computers to help analyse the massive data sets generated by the LHC. The partnership made sense scientifically. The amount of data produced by particle collisions is staggering, and quantum computers theoretically excel at pattern recognition and optimization tasks. But conspiracy researchers noticed something disturbing. The Mandela effect reports intensified after CERN began using quantum computing for data analysis, as if the act of quantum processing itself somehow amplified or stabilized the reality shifts created by the collisions. One theory goes like this. The LHC creates momentary conditions where multiple timelines branch from our own. The quantum computer, in analysing the data, becomes entangled with those alternate realities. Through some mechanism nobody understands, information from those other timelines leaks back into our reality, creating inconsistencies and false memories. It sounds absurd. Until you remember that quantum entanglement does allow instantaneous correlations between particles regardless of distance. Until you consider that the observer effect does show consciousness interacting with quantum systems. Until you look at the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which seriously proposes that every quantum measurement creates actual branching universes. If many worlds is true, CERN is creating new universes with every collision, trillions of them per second, and somewhere in that vast multi-dimensional structure, information might be leaking between branches, strange deaths and disappearances. Then there are the people who died or vanished. In January 2011, a senior particle physicist at CERN fell from the 7th floor of his apartment building in Geneva. The death was ruled a suicide. The man had recently expressed concerns in private emails about experimental safety, though CERN noted he'd also been dealing with depression. March 2015. Another CERN physicist died in a car accident under strange circumstances. His vehicle left the road on a clear day with no mechanical failure found. Toxicology was clean. He was an experienced driver familiar with the route. The accident report concluded he must have fallen asleep at the wheel, despite it being mid-morning after a full night's rest. November 2017. A CERN contractor specialising in superconducting magnets vanished while hiking in the Alps. Search teams found his backpack and some equipment but no body. The case remains open but cold. His family claims he was an expert mountaineer who wouldn't have taken unnecessary risks. August 2019. A data analyst who worked on LHC collision data died by apparent suicide. He left no note. Friends and family insist he showed no signs of depression or mental distress. Statistically, these incidents mean nothing. CERN employs thousands of people. Some will die by accident or suicide at rates consistent with the general population. Trying to find patterns in tragic but random deaths is textbook apophenia, seeing meaningful connections in unrelated events. But conspiracy theorists point out that all 4 individuals had high-level access to experimental data. All 4 deaths occurred during periods of active LHC operation. and all 4 cases had elements that family members or colleagues described as inconsistent with the individual's character or behaviour. There are also the disappearances that aren't official. People who claim to have worked at CERN who suddenly vanish from social media, delete their online presence, and become impossible to contact. Are they real former employees trying to escape conspiracy theorist harassment? Are they fictional personas created to spread disinformation? Or are they people who saw something they weren't supposed to see and were silenced? The problem with conspiracy theories is that once you're looking for patterns, you find them everywhere, and sometimes you find them because they are actually there. Act 3. Project Alice and the Antimatter. Question of the multiple experiments running at the Large Hadron Collider, one has attracted particular attention from conspiracy theorists: Alice. Alice stands for a Large Ion Collider experiment, and unlike the other detectors that primarily focus on proton collisions, Alice specialises in smashing together heavy ions, particularly lead nuclei. The goal is to recreate conditions that existed microseconds after the Big Bang, producing a state of matter called quark-gluon plasma, where protons and neutrons melt into their constituent parts. It's legitimate science, staffed by more than 1,500 scientists from over 40 countries. The research helps us understand the early universe and the fundamental forces that shaped everything we see today. But there's something about that name, Alice. It immediately evokes Alice in Wonderland, falling down the rabbit hole into a reality that doesn't follow normal rules. And when conspiracy theorists learned what Alice actually does, creating conditions from the universe's first moments, the symbolism felt too perfect to ignore. Then came the leak. In 2018, an internal CERN document appeared on several conspiracy theory websites. The paper, dated several months earlier, made reference to unidentified spectral harmonics detected during heavy ion collision runs in the Alice detector. The language was technical, filled with physics jargon about frequency analysis and signal processing. To trained scientists, this was unremarkable. Spectral harmonics just refers to frequency patterns in detector readings, and unidentified simply meant they hadn't yet determined whether the signal came from the collision itself or background noise from the electronics. It was routine calibration work, the kind of thing that happens constantly in any large experimental facility. But to conspiracy researchers, those 2 words, unidentified harmonics, meant something very different. They interpreted it as evidence of dimensional interference, signals bleeding through from parallel universes or alternate realities that the collisions had momentarily connected to our own. A whistleblower using the pseudonym Thomas Kellner claimed in an anonymous post to have worked in the Alice collaboration. His post, which appeared on a dark web forum in March 2019, described detecting resonance patterns that shouldn't exist during a specific test run in late 2018. According to Kellner, the patterns showed structure, regularity, as if they were being generated by something purposeful rather than random quantum noise. He claimed the data was immediately classified above his access level and that team members were told to stop discussing it. When he pushed for answers, he was reassigned to different work. His post ended with, "They found something in the plasma, something that's looking back." The post was impossible to verify. Kellner never provided proof of employment or concrete data. His identity was never confirmed. CERN has thousands of researchers and contractors, and tracking down one anonymous post from an alleged insider is essentially impossible. But the post gained traction because it touched on something deeper than just technical anomalies. It suggested intentionality. Not that CERN accidentally discovered something strange, but that something strange discovered CERN. The antimatter mystery. Here's something most people don't think about. CERN produces antimatter, not as a goal of the LHC specifically, but as part of the research conducted at the facility. The antimatter factory at CERN creates antiprotons and antihydrogen atoms for experiments studying the fundamental symmetries of physics. They trap these particles in electromagnetic fields, suspending them in perfect vacuum, just atoms, away from the container walls. When matter touches antimatter, both are instantly converted into energy. Not nuclear energy, where a tiny fraction of mass becomes energy. Total conversion. 100% efficiency according to E equals mc squared. A single gram of antimatter meeting a gram of matter would release approximately 43 kilotons of energy, roughly 3 times the Hiroshima bomb. CERN stores nanograms of antimatter. That's billionths of a gram. Barely enough to power a light bulb for a few minutes if it could be released safely. Not nearly enough to pose any catastrophic danger, or so they say. A leaked budget document from 2014, verified as authentic by multiple sources, though CERN won't confirm its contents publicly, showed funding allocated for expanded antimatter storage and handling capabilities. The amounts were significant, suggesting infrastructure well beyond what existing experiments required. What were they planning to do with larger quantities of antimatter? The official explanation, when pressed, was that future experiments might need more antiparticles for precision measurements. Perfectly reasonable. But theoretical physicists have long speculated about antimatter propulsion for spacecraft. The energy density is unmatched. A spaceship with an antimatter engine could theoretically reach a significant fraction of light speed, and if you wanted to power something truly enormous, something that drew more energy than the electrical grid could supply, antimatter would be one solution. What if the expansions and upgrades to the LHC aren't just about gathering more data? What if they're building towards something that requires power levels beyond anything currently available? Some conspiracy theories suggest CERN is constructing a portal device, a literal doorway to other dimensions or other times. Such a device would require staggering amounts of energy, possibly only achievable through antimatter. Others suggest they're trying to create a stable micro-black hole, something that could be contained and studied but would need enormous energy just to form and possibly antimatter to feed it. These theories are wildly speculative, bordering on science fiction, but they emerge from a simple observation. CERN keeps expanding its capabilities and increasing its energy usage for reasons that aren't always publicly explained in detail. They're preparing for something beyond current experiments. The question is, what? Act 4. Run 3 and the New Fears. After the Higgs boson discovery, CERN began planning major upgrades to the Large Hadron Collider. The goal was to increase the collision energy and, more importantly, the luminosity, essentially how many collisions occur per second. More collisions mean more data, and more data means better chances of discovering new physics beyond the standard model. In late 2018, the collider shut down for extensive upgrades. For 3 years, teams worked to enhance the magnets, improve the beam injection systems, and upgrade the detectors. It was scheduled to restart in 2022 with significantly increased capabilities. As the restart date approached, conspiracy communities went into overdrive. On April 22, 2022, the Large Hadron Collider roared back to life. Proton beams once again circulated through the 17-mile ring, building up energy as the magnets ramped to full power. The internet noticed immediately. Social media feeds filled with posts documenting strange occurrences around the world coinciding with the restart. April 23, 2022. Multiple reports of unusual cloud formations across Europe. Perfectly circular gaps in cloud cover, as if something had punched through from below. Meteorologists attributed this to natural atmospheric phenomena, but the timing and geographic distribution centered suspiciously on Geneva. April 25th. A widespread internet outage affected major platforms globally. The cause was traced to a configuration error at a cloud services provider, nothing to do with CERN. But the timing was noted. April 27th. Amateur astronomers recorded unusual electromagnetic readings in the upper atmosphere above Switzerland. The signals were brief, lasting only seconds, but were strong enough to be picked up by equipment designed for studying aurora phenomena. Then, on July 5th, 2022, Run 3 officially began. The collision energy reached 13.6 TeV, the highest ever achieved. CERN celebrated this milestone, announcing it would lead to unprecedented sensitivity for detecting rare particle interactions. Social media exploded. Within hours of the announcement, Twitter, Reddit and TikTok filled with posts claiming CERN had opened the portal again. People compiled lists of strange occurrences that happened around the same time, unusual cloud formations, unexplained booms heard across different continents, reports of electronic devices malfunctioning, even claims that the texture of reality felt different somehow. A hashtag trended. CERN again. But it wasn't just online hysteria. Credible, documented incidents occurred that skeptics found harder to dismiss. July 6, 2022. The European Mediterranean Seismological Centre recorded unusual seismic activity in the Geneva region. Not earthquakes, but rhythmic vibrations at regular intervals. The pattern matched the collision schedule at CERN. Geologists explained that large machinery can create detectable vibrations, but the signals were stronger than expected from an underground facility. July 8th. Multiple commercial airline pilots reported temporary instrument malfunctions while flying over or near Switzerland. Compass deviations, altitude indicator glitches, GPS errors. Each incident lasted only minutes, and all instruments returned to normal function. Aviation authorities investigated and found no systemic issues with the aircraft. July 10th. A power substation in France, about 50 kilometres from CERN, experienced an unexplained surge that tripped safety systems and caused temporary outages in surrounding areas. The utility company couldn't identify the source of the surge. Each incident individually was explainable. Collectively, they formed a pattern that was harder to ignore. CERN spokesperson, Paula Alves, responded to the surge of concern in multiple interviews. Her message was consistent and patient. No, we're not opening portals. We're recreating particle interactions that happen naturally in the atmosphere every second. The only difference is we're doing it in a controlled environment where we can study what happens. She emphasised the safety studies that had been conducted before every upgrade, the peer review process involving thousands of independent scientists, and the fundamental impossibility of the collider creating anything dangerous. The energies involved, while huge by human standards, were tiny compared to cosmic ray collisions that have been bombarding Earth for billions of years without causing any problems. To most people this was reassuring, but to the conspiracy-minded, official denials just added fuel to the fire. The Reality Monitoring Project. Independent researchers began monitoring electromagnetic data around the Geneva area using commercially available magnetometer equipment to detect fluctuations in Earth's magnetic field. Several groups claim to have recorded anomalies that coincided with LHC operational schedules, though the data was never formally published or verified by independent institutions. One particularly detailed effort came from a group calling themselves the Reality Monitoring Project. They set up monitoring stations at various distances from CERN, ranging from 5 kilometres to over 200 kilometres away, and collected readings continuously over several months during Run-3 operations. Their equipment measured magnetic field strength, electromagnetic radiation across multiple frequencies, and even subtle air pressure variations. All data was time-stamped and logged automatically to avoid human bias. Their findings, posted freely online with all raw data available for anyone to analyse, showed what they described as irregular magnetic pulses that appear to correlate with high-energy collision windows. The pulses were small, barely above background noise, but they were present and they were rhythmic. More disturbing, the pulses seemed to propagate outward from Geneva. Stations closer to CERN detected them first, with outer stations picking up similar patterns minutes to hours later, as if the disturbance was spreading through the magnetic field at a measurable speed. The Reality Monitoring Project published their methodology and invited skeptical scientists to review their work. Several did, pointing out multiple problems. The equipment used wasn't properly calibrated against certified standards. There were no control readings from locations hundreds of kilometres away to establish whether similar patterns appeared globally. The statistical analysis conflated correlation with causation and cherry-picked time windows to make patterns appear stronger than they were. But here's what the skeptics couldn't explain. Independent groups in different countries, using different equipment and different analysis methods, were reporting similar findings. The readings didn't match exactly, but they all showed anomalies correlating with CERN's operational schedule. Either there was a coordinated hoax involving dozens of independent researchers who'd never met, or something was creating detectable electromagnetic effects beyond what CERN officially acknowledged. The third possibility, confirmation bias and methodological errors, were so widespread that multiple groups independently arrived at false conclusions. This is actually the most likely explanation scientifically, but it's also the least satisfying. Because if citizen scientists using consumer-grade equipment can detect anomalies, why can't CERN, with its vastly superior instruments and expertise? Either the anomalies are real, and CERN knows about them but isn't disclosing the information, or the anomalies are artifacts of poor methodology, and CERN is simply ignoring noise. Neither answer is comforting. A-Seat 5. The symbolism, the rituals, and the silence. If you visit CERN's main campus in Geneva, one of the first things you'll notice is the statue of Shiva. The statue depicts Shiva Nataraja, the lord of the cosmic dance. It stands about 2 meters tall, bronze and graceful, showing the god frozen mid-dance inside a ring of flames. One foot crushes a demon representing ignorance, the other lifts in eternal motion. Multiple arms spread outward, one hand holding a drum representing creation, another holding fire representing destruction. The statue was a gift from the government of India in 2004, installed to honour the long-standing collaboration between Indian scientists and CERN. The symbolism is actually quite appropriate. Shiva's cosmic dance represents the endless cycle of creation and destruction that governs the universe. CERN's work, smashing particles together and watching them emerge and decay, mirrors this dance at the quantum level. But to conspiracy theorists, the symbolism means something darker. Shiva destroys worlds. Shiva dances reality into and out of existence. Why would the world's most powerful particle physics laboratory choose this particular deity to stand watch over their work unless they knew, on some level, that they were playing with destructive cosmic forces? The statue's position is also notable. It stands outside Building 40, home to CERN's administrative offices, visible to everyone entering the main campus. It's a statement of purpose, a declaration of intent. We are dancing at the edge of creation and destruction, the logo and the numbers. Then there's the logo. CERN's official logo consists of 2 interlocking circles with a series of smaller circular elements. To most people it's abstract and modern, suggesting particles and orbits, but look at it a certain way, and you can see 3 number 6s arranged in a circular pattern. 666. The number of the beast from the Book of Revelation. Is it intentional? CERN says no, pointing out that the design was created to represent particle accelerators and nothing more. The 6s are just an artifact of the overlapping circles, a coincidence of geometry. But graphic designers note that logos go through extensive review and iteration. Someone at some point must have noticed the 6s. Someone must have pointed it out, and yet the design remained unchanged. For conspiracy theorists with religious inclinations, this is proof of intentional satanic symbolism. They point to other numbers associated with CERN as well. The collider itself is 17 miles in circumference. In some numerological systems, 17 reduces to 8, which itself represents infinity and eternal cycles. The tunnel sits between 50 and 175 metres below ground. That's an average depth of 112.5 metres. Add those digits. 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 5 equals 9. Multiply by the number of 6s in the logo. 3 times 9 equals 27, the exact number of kilometres in the tunnel. This is numerology, not mathematics. You can make any set of numbers mean anything if you manipulate them enough, but the patterns keep appearing, and to believers, that means something. The opening ceremony. In June 2016, the Gotthard Base Tunnel opened in Switzerland, the world's longest and deepest traffic tunnel, running parallel to and even deeper than the LHC in some sections. The opening ceremony was one of the strangest public events in recent memory. The ceremony featured bizarre theatrical performances, people in white bodysuits writhing on the ground, a baby-faced son with an enormous tongue, workers bowing down to a goat-headed figure, dancers simulating sexual acts, imagery of death and resurrection. It was surreal, disturbing, and broadcast live to millions of viewers. CERN scientists were invited guests of honour, prominently featured in attendance. The official explanation was that the ceremony represented Swiss folklore and the hard work of tunnel construction through allegory and artistic expression. The goat-headed figure was a reference to local legends, not Baphomet. The strange imagery was simply European performance art, but to conspiracy theorists, it looked like an occult ritual performed in plain sight. The symbolism echoed mystery school traditions, Masonic imagery, and satanic aesthetics. And CERN's presence connected the event to the larger narrative of scientific research as modern dark magic. A month later, the mock sacrifice video was filmed at CERN, the one supposedly explained away as a prank. The timing felt less like coincidence and more like continuation of something begun at the tunnel opening. Public relations or mocking, CERN's public outreach doesn't help quiet these concerns, at least not in the way they intend. In an effort to make their work accessible and exciting, they've produced videos and installations that play with concepts from science fiction and quantum theory. Their visitor centre features artistic representations of parallel universes, wormholes and higher dimensions. In one promotional video from several years ago, CERN scientists talk about opening doorways to new dimensions and exploring realms beyond our everyday experience. They're speaking metaphorically, using vivid language to describe abstract mathematics. But taken literally, those phrases sound exactly like what conspiracy theorists have been warning about. Another video featured a rap performance by CERN scientists, with lyrics about reaching beyond the veil and breaking through to other sides. It was meant to be fun and approachable. But the language, whether intentional or not, echoes occult terminology about piercing the veil between worlds and accessing forbidden knowledge. Are they mocking the conspiracy theories, embracing them ironically? Or do these linguistic choices reveal something about how CERN scientists actually think about their work, even if only subconsciously? When you spend your career trying to shatter the fundamental structure of matter, when you deliberately create conditions that haven't existed since the first moments after creation, maybe your language naturally drifts toward the apocalyptic and the mystical. Because that's genuinely what you're doing, even if the reality is prosaic particles in a tunnel rather than dramatic portals to other dimensions, the rumours and the silences. There are also the rumours, the whispered stories that circulate online, impossible to verify but too specific to feel completely fabricated. In 2015, an anonymous email supposedly leaked from someone claiming to work in CERN's data analysis division. The email described the detection of an unusual particle signature at an energy level of 750 GeV during test collisions. The particle appeared and vanished in a pattern that didn't match any known physics. The email claimed that upper management ordered the data suppressed, and the detection never officially reported. Months later, CERN did announce they'd observed an interesting signal around 750 GeV. But after collecting more data, they determined it was a statistical fluctuation, not a real particle. This kind of false positive is common in particle physics, exactly what you'd expect from the noisy environment of trillion collision experiments. To conspiracists, though, the sequence looks suspicious. Anonymous leak mentions 750. CERN later acknowledges 750. Then they walk it back, saying it was nothing. pattern of discover, suppress, deny. Another rumour surfaced in 2019 about a major data centre blackout that allegedly occurred during Run 3 preparation tests. According to the story, a power surge fried multiple server racks, destroying months of experimental results. CERN supposedly implemented information lockdown, requiring staff to sign additional non-disclosure agreements and restricting access to the affected systems. No evidence for this has ever emerged. No news reports, no insider confirmations, nothing. It might be completely invented, but it fits the pattern conspiracy theories thrive on. Data appears, something goes wrong, explanations arrive late or not at all, and the official story feels incomplete. The frustrating thing, from CERN's perspective, is that they are remarkably transparent. They publish thousands of scientific papers every year. Their data is available to researchers worldwide. Their safety reports are public. They give tours to school children and host public lectures. But transparency doesn't eliminate suspicion when people have already decided the official story can't be trusted. Every explanation becomes a cover story. Every denial confirms guilt. Every delay or complication becomes evidence of conspiracy. It's a psychological trap with no easy escape. And meanwhile, deep underground, the machine keeps running. The collisions continue. The data accumulates. Whatever is really happening beneath those Swiss fields, it's happening whether we trust CERN or not. AC6, the science, the speculation, and the unanswered questions. Let's take a step back and look at what scientists actually say about the concerns raised by conspiracy theories. Fabiola Gianotti, CERN's Director General, has addressed these fears multiple times in interviews and public appearances. Her message is always calm, clear, and grounded in observable evidence. She emphasises that the physics governing the LHC's operations is well understood, and that the collider operates safely within known boundaries. We study the fundamental laws of nature, she explains in one interview. These are the same laws that have governed the universe for billions of years. We're not changing them or breaking them. We're simply observing them in controlled conditions. Brian Cox, the physicist and science communicator, has been even more direct in dismissing portal theories. If the LHC could destroy the world, he said repeatedly, cosmic rays would have done it long ago. Every second, particles far more energetic than anything we can produce hit our atmosphere. If that was dangerous, we wouldn't be here to worry about it. It's a solid logical argument based on what's called the cosmic ray argument for safety. The universe is constantly running experiments more extreme than anything humans can create. Earth has been bombarded by high-energy particles for over 4 billion years. If such collisions could create dangerous black holes, destroy matter in catastrophic ways, or tear holes in space-time, it would have happened naturally countless times already. The fact that we exist proves it's safe, but not everyone accepts this reasoning completely. The edge cases. Some independent theoretical physicists, while not endorsing the conspiracy theories, have raised questions about edge cases and unknowns. They point out that cosmic ray collisions, while more energetic, happen differently than collider experiments. In cosmic ray impacts, one particle moving at near-light speed hits a stationary target. In the LHC, two particles moving at near-light speed hit each other head-on. Does this difference matter? Probably not. The centre of mass energy is what counts, and cosmic rays still win that comparison. But could there be some exotic interaction that only manifests in carefully controlled collision geometries? The probability is extraordinarily low, but it's not mathematically zero. There's also the question of cumulative effects. Cosmic ray collisions happen randomly, scattered across the atmosphere. The LHC concentrates trillions of collisions in the same tiny region of space. Could there be threshold effects or resonance phenomena that only appear with sustained high-density interactions? Again, theoretical physicists say almost certainly not. But almost certainly isn't quite the same as certainly. Quantum consciousness. Then there's the question of quantum consciousness, a controversial idea even among physicists who take quantum mechanics seriously. Some interpretations of quantum theory, particularly the observer effect, suggest that consciousness plays a role in collapsing quantum superpositions into definite states. If that's true, even slightly, then what happens when thousands of conscious observers are deliberately smashing particles together trillions of times? Are we just observing the quantum realm, or are we participating in shaping it? Mainstream physicists overwhelmingly reject this kind of thinking as pseudoscience. Consciousness, they argue, is an emergent property of complex neural networks, not a fundamental force that influences particle behaviour. The observer effect in quantum mechanics doesn't require consciousness, just interaction with measurement devices. But the philosophical questions linger. When we observe something at the absolute limits of reality, how sure can we be that the observation itself doesn't alter what we're seeing? This is where science starts to blur into something that looks like mysticism, not because the science is wrong, but because it's pushing into territory where human intuition breaks down completely. We evolved to understand medium-sized objects moving at moderate speeds in 3 dimensions. We did not evolve to intuitively grasp quantum superposition, space-time curvature, or 11-dimensional string theory. At a certain point, even the scientists have to operate on faith. Faith that the mathematics is correct. Faith that the instruments are measuring what we think they're measuring. Faith that the theories we've constructed actually describe reality, rather than just predicting experimental outcomes. That faith is based on extraordinary evidence and rigorous testing, but it's still, at some level, faith. The mini black hole. Question 1 of the earliest fears about the LHC was that it might create mini black holes that would grow and consume the Earth. This fear was prominent enough that CERN commissioned specific safety studies before the collider's first operations. The studies concluded that even if micro black holes formed, they would evaporate instantly through Hawking radiation, a quantum effect where black holes lose mass by emitting particles. The smaller the black hole, the faster it evaporates. A black hole with the mass of a proton would vanish in less time than it takes light to cross an atomic nucleus. This is solid physics based on Stephen Hawking's theoretical work from the 1970s. The mathematics is sound. The predictions match observations of larger black holes. But here's the thing. Hawking radiation has never been directly observed. It's never been tested experimentally because we can't create black holes in laboratories or get close enough to natural black holes to measure them precisely. The theory is almost certainly correct, but it's still theory. What if Hawking was wrong? What if there's some condition under which micro black holes don't evaporate, or evaporate slower than predicted? If a stable micro black hole formed and began accumulating matter, it would sink to the Earth's core through gravity. There, it would slowly consume the planet from the inside, growing larger as it absorbed more matter, until eventually nothing remained but a black hole the size of a marble with Earth's entire mass compressed into it. The timescale would be geological. It might take millions or billions of years, but it would be inevitable. CERN safety studies say this is impossible. Cosmic rays far more energetic than the LHC regularly create collisions in the atmosphere and in astronomical bodies throughout the universe. If stable dangerous black holes could form from such collisions, neutron stars and white dwarfs would be full of them. The fact that these objects exist and are stable proves the safety of similar collisions in the LHC. It's a compelling argument, but it rests on our understanding of physics being complete and correct at these extreme energy scales. And history shows that our understanding of physics is never complete. Newton's laws worked perfectly until someone tested them at high speeds and discovered relativity. Relativity worked perfectly until someone examined the quantum scale and discovered quantum mechanics. What if there's another layer we haven't discovered yet? What if there are corrections to our theories that only matter at the precise conditions the LHC creates? The probability is infinitesimally small, but it's not zero, and we're betting the entire planet on being right. Act 7. The Human Element and the Search for Truth. To understand how the CERN conspiracy has persisted and grown, let's follow someone who tried to bridge the gap between believers and skeptics. Laura Hayes is a journalist, fictional for our purposes, but representative of many real reporters who've investigated this story. She spent 18 months documenting the CERN conspiracy community, interviewing everyone from CERN employees to online theorists, convinced reality was being rewritten with each collision. Her journey started simply enough. She wanted to understand why intelligent people believed something that mainstream science dismissed so completely. Were they all gullible, mentally unstable, or was there something deeper, some legitimate concern being expressed through the metaphor of conspiracy? What she found surprised her. The CERN employees she interviewed were, almost universally, thoughtful and patient. They understood the public's fear. They got the particle physics as counterintuitive, and that the scale of the LHC is genuinely intimidating. Many had children of their own and took safety concerns seriously, not just as scientists but as human beings who wanted to leave a livable world for the next generation. They invited her to visit the facility, showed her the control rooms and detector halls, explained the layers of redundancy built into every system. They answered her questions without condescension, even when those questions came directly from conspiracy forums and involved concepts they knew were impossible. One researcher, Elena Kovac, spent 3 hours walking Laura through the safety analysis process. She explained how they model every conceivable failure mode, how they test components beyond their design limits, how they incorporate lessons from decades of accelerator operations worldwide. "Do you ever worry?" Laura asked. "Even a little?" Elena paused before answering. "I worry about calibration errors in the data. I worry about missing something important because we weren't looking in the right energy range. I worry about funding being cut before we answer the questions we're trying to answer. But destroying the world? No. The physics doesn't allow it. Not in any scenario we can conceive of with our current understanding. But your current understanding could be wrong." "It could be," Elena admitted. "But if we're that fundamentally wrong about physics, the universe should have destroyed itself billions of years ago through natural processes. The fact that we're here, having this conversation, is evidence that reality is stable under these conditions." It was a good answer, but it didn't entirely address the fear. On the other side, Laura met the conspiracy theorists. They weren't the stereotypes she expected. Many were educated, articulate, and genuinely curious about science. They'd done their research, read CERN's papers, understood the basic physics. But they'd also seen patterns mainstream scientists dismissed. They'd experienced the Mandela effect personally, held vivid memories that contradicted documented reality. They'd noticed the timing of global events and technical anomalies that seemed too consistent to ignore. And they felt like they weren't being heard. Every time they raised concerns, scientists responded with variations of "you don't understand" or "trust us." Even when the scientists meant this kindly, it felt patronising. It felt like being told to sit down and stop asking questions. Michael Torres, a former software engineer who'd become deeply involved in conspiracy research, explained his journey to Laura over coffee in Geneva, within sight of CERN's campus. "I used to think conspiracy theorists were idiots," he said. "Then I experienced a Mandela effect that I couldn't explain away. The Fruit of the Loom logo. I learned what a cornucopia was specifically from that logo when I was 6 years old. My mother had to explain what the horn thing behind the fruit was. That's a formative memory, clear as day. But the logo never had a cornucopia. I know, I've checked every version. It's not there. It never was there. But I remember it. And not vaguely. Crystal clear, specific memory tied to a learning moment with my mother." "So you think CERN changed reality?" "I think something changed. Maybe it's CERN, maybe it's something else. But when thousands of people share the exact same false memory, that's not random. That's a pattern that needs explanation," Laura pushed back. "Psychologists explain it through confabulation, suggestion, and the unreliability of human memory." "Sure, that explains some of it." But all of it, with that level of specificity, with perfect consistency across thousands of independent accounts. Michael shook his head. I spent 20 years writing code, debugging systems, looking for patterns in data. This isn't noise, this is signal. The Visit Laura's final trip to CERN happened during a scheduled test run. She stood in the visitor centre with a small group of tourists and journalists watching displays that showed the proton beams ramping up to full energy deep underground. The screens displayed real-time data, beam intensity, collision rate, detector readings. Numbers climbed, graphs spiked. Somewhere below their feet, particles were being accelerated to 99.99999%, the speed of light, circling the ring 11,000 times per second before smashing together in bursts of pure energy. The guide explained what they were watching. Each collision releases about the energy of a mosquito flying, but concentrated in a space trillions of times smaller than the mosquito. That concentration is what lets us probe the fundamental structure of matter. And then something happened. Nothing dramatic, just a brief flicker. The lights dimmed for a fraction of a second. A faint vibration rippled through the floor, barely perceptible unless you were paying attention. The CERN guide explained immediately. That's the main magnets coming online to full power. They draw tremendous current. You'll notice the lights sometimes fluctuate during high-energy operations. Everyone nodded. Perfectly normal. Exactly what you'd expect. But Laura felt something she couldn't quite name. Standing there, knowing that beneath her feet reality was being torn apart and reconstructed trillions of times per second, she understood both sides completely. The science said it was safe. The science was almost certainly right. But almost isn't quite the same as absolutely. In her notes later, she wrote, maybe it's just physics, or maybe every time they press that button, the universe has to choose which version of itself keeps going, and maybe we're all sitting here trusting that it keeps choosing us. She never published her investigation, not because she found evidence of conspiracy, but because she realised the truth was more nuanced than either side wanted to admit. CERN wasn't hiding dark secrets or opening portals, but they were pushing the boundaries of known physics into realms where certainty becomes impossible. They were operating in the space between what we know and what we can never fully know, trusting that our mathematical models correctly describe reality at scales we can't directly perceive, that trust is probably justified, but it's still trust. And for people who've experienced phenomena like the Mandela effect, who felt reality shift in ways they can't explain, trust in establishment science isn't enough. They need answers that science can't provide yet, maybe won't ever provide. Ending. Fact versus faith, truth versus mystery. The story of CERN and the Large Hadron Collider doesn't have a tidy ending because the story is still being written. As of right now, CERN is preparing for its next major phase, the High Luminosity Large Hadron Collider, scheduled to begin operations around 2030. This upgrade will increase the collision rate by a factor of 10, producing vastly more data and creating opportunities to discover physics beyond anything we currently understand. The specifications are staggering. The HLLHC will produce between 5 and 7 times more integrated luminosity over its operational lifetime. That's hundreds of millions of additional Higgs bosons, billions of top quarks, countless opportunities to find cracks in the standard model. The conspiracy communities are already preparing. Social media chatter claims this next phase will be the one that finally goes too far, that reality won't survive the increased intensity, that whatever thin barrier separates us from other dimensions or timelines will finally rupture completely. Some groups have started predicting specific dates when they believe the dimensional collapse will occur. These predictions follow the pattern of apocalyptic prophecies throughout history, specific, confident and inevitably wrong when the date passes without incident. But each failed prediction doesn't dampen the fear, it just pushes the timeline forward. Next year, next upgrade, next energy level. Eventually they'll be right that something happens, not because CERN actually breaks reality, but because the law of large numbers guarantees that something notable will eventually coincide with a major operation, a natural disaster, a technical failure, a geopolitical event, and when it does, conspiracy theorists will point to it as vindication. CERN responds with the same calm assurance they always have. More safety studies, more transparency, more public outreach. They're confident because the physics says they should be confident. But confidence and certainty aren't quite the same thing. Meanwhile, children tour the facility on school trips, excited by the discovery and wonder of fundamental science. Young students dream of becoming physicists, of contributing to humanity's understanding of the cosmos. CERN represents the best of what we can achieve when we work together across borders towards shared knowledge. And in quiet corners of the internet, people continue to document Mandela effects, strange phenomena, unexplained glitches in reality. They compare notes, look for patterns, and watch CERN's operational calendar with suspicion and fear. Both groups, in their own way, are asking the same question. What are we really doing down there? For scientists, the answer is clear. We're unlocking the secrets of matter and energy, understanding how the universe works at its most fundamental level. We're doing what humans have always done, pushing boundaries, asking questions, refusing to accept ignorance when knowledge is possible. For others, the answer is darker. We're rewriting the code of existence itself, tampering with forces that govern creation and destruction, perhaps changing reality in ways we don't even recognise because our memories change along with it. Between the magnets and the myths stands a truth that both sides might accept. We built a machine powerful enough to test creation itself. The Large Hadron Collider operates at energies that haven't existed since the first microseconds after the Big Bang. It recreates conditions that gave birth to all matter, all energy, all structure in the universe. It lets us peer into the quantum realm where reality becomes probability, and the act of observation changes what we're observing. Whether we fully understand what it's showing us remains an open question. The data doesn't lie, but it doesn't tell the whole truth. Either the data is real, the discoveries are real, the Higgs boson exists, the mathematics works, the predictions prove accurate time and again, but the universe is vast and strange and doesn't care about human understanding. We've explored only a tiny fraction of possible physics. We don't know what dark matter is, the substance that makes up 85% of all matter in the universe. We don't know what dark energy is, the force accelerating the universe's expansion. We don't know why the universe exists at all rather than nothing. We don't know if parallel universes are real, or if consciousness plays any role in quantum mechanics, or what happens to information that falls into a black hole. Every answer raises new questions. Every discovery reveals new mysteries. CERN operates in that space between knowledge and ignorance, pushing the boundary forward one collision at a time. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's what we're supposed to do as a species, explore and question, and risk being wrong in pursuit of being less wrong tomorrow. Or maybe, just maybe, there are boundaries we shouldn't cross, forces we shouldn't touch, doors we shouldn't open even if we can. Standing on the surface above those 17 miles of circular tunnel, watching cows graze and families picnic, it's easy to forget what's happening below, the hum of the universe being taken apart and put back together again, over and over, trillions of times per second. Most days, it's just science. Remarkable, profound, world-changing science. But some days, late at night when the collider runs at full power and strange reports filter through social media, and you remember that we built a statue to a god of cosmic destruction at the entrance to a machine that recreates creation itself, you might find yourself wondering, are we discovering the universe, or are we changing it? The scientists say we're only discovering. The conspiracy theorists say we're changing everything. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, in that uncomfortable space where certainty gives way to possibility. The mystery endures. All the CERN data referenced in this investigation is drawn from public reports published between 2008 and 2024. Independent review committees have examined the safety of the Large Hadron Collider extensively. No credible evidence supports claims of dimensional alteration, timeline manipulation, or reality modification. The Mandela effect is a real psychological phenomenon documented by cognitive researchers, but mainstream science attributes it to the well-understood unreliability of human memory, rather than timeline shifts. The strange incidents and anomalies reported around CERN operations have mundane explanations. Power fluctuations are normal for high-energy facilities. Electromagnetic readings can be affected by countless sources. Pattern recognition in human brains naturally finds correlations even in random data. But the mystery endures because at the end of the day we're still just barely evolved primates playing with forces that shape the cosmos. We're clever enough to build the machine, smart enough to make predictions about what will happen, but maybe not quite wise enough to know whether we should. The collider runs tonight, as it does most nights. Protons circle, magnets hum, particles collide, data accumulates. Somewhere, someone is experiencing a memory that doesn't match documented history. They're confused, disturbed, wondering if they're going crazy or if reality itself is unstable. Somewhere else, someone is measuring an anomaly they can't quite explain. A signal that shouldn't be there. A pattern in the noise that looks almost deliberate. And somewhere in Geneva, a scientist is looking at unexpected results from the latest run and wondering what it means. Are they seeing something new about the universe? An error in their analysis? Or the first hint of something they haven't even imagined yet? The universe keeps its secrets close. We keep asking questions. And beneath the peaceful fields of the Swiss-French border, the largest machine ever built continues its cosmic dance, pulling creation apart to understand how it was made, whether reality survives each collision, or quietly shifts into a new configuration, choosing one timeline over another, leaving only those memories that fit the new history is something we might never know. Because if reality changes and our memories change with it, how would we ever detect the difference? We wouldn't remember the old timeline. We'd only know this one, the one where we've always existed, where history has always been exactly as it is now, unless some people remember, unless consciousness doesn't update perfectly when reality shifts, unless we're all leaving traces of ourselves in every timeline we pass through, phantom memories echoing across parallel worlds. The scientists say that's impossible, and they're probably right. Probably. But on nights when the collider runs at full power, and you can't shake the feeling that something is slightly wrong with the world, that reality has a faint seam you can almost perceive, if you look at it sideways, you might wonder, do you remember it differently? Are you sure you don't?